Chapter 534. Although he didn't know why Jiuyu Holy Sun was here, Yang Chuan looked at Mo Yushi and gave her a trusting smile. This smile touched Mo Yushi's eyes, and she slowly walked over. Meow, Sister Mo is here. Meow had woken up and jumped over. Meow. Mo Yushi's eyes were filled with joy. She flipped her hand, and a small 7-colored stone fragment appeared in her palm. The stone fragment was very small, but it emitted a powerful aura. Meow. Meow's eyes instantly became heart-shaped. This is an immortal stone fragment I obtained by chance. Do you like it? Mo Yushi smiled. Meow, I like it. That's great, that's great. Sister Mo is the prettiest. Meow's mouth was instantly filled with joy. Immortal stone fragment. Saintess Yushi, this is an immortal item bestowed by the Holy Master. How can you give it to a little cat? Jiuyu Holy Sun said in a low voice. Cat your sister. You're the cat. Meow. Meow immediately shouted angrily. Evil creature, what did you say? A bearded expert behind Jiuyu Holy Sun suddenly glared, and a powerful aura surged out. Mo Yushi's face darkened. She waved her hand, and a powerful aura pushed back the expert's aura. Chang-san, you have no right to speak here. Mo Yushi glared. The bearded man called Chang-san glared at Mo Yushi, and took a deep breath. Yes. Mo Yushi turned to Jiuyu Holy Sun and said, Jiuyu Holy Sun, the immortal stone fragment is mine. You have no right to decide what to do with it. Also, Meow is not a cat. She's a tiger. Meow. Meow said arrogantly. Tiger? Heh. Jiuyu Holy Sun did not get angry. Instead, he smiled mysteriously. Prince Yang, long time no see. Mr. Munro smiled. Mr. Munro, I've been waiting for a long time. Yang Chuan also smiled. Yang Chuan, something happened when we went back to invite Mr. Munro. Mo Yushi took a deep breath and said. Oh. Actually, when Yang Chuan saw Jiuyu Holy Sun, he knew that things were not as simple as they seemed. I asked Mr. Munro for help, but somehow, Mohina Jin found out about it. Mo Yushi said. Yang Chuan frowned. Mohina Jin? Why was it him again? That's right. When my father found out about this, he decided to help you. He sent the 4 strongest people in the Dazhao Holy Land. When Ruo is in charge of painting. This is the Qin King, this is the Chess King, and this is the Book King. They were all sent by my father to help you. You should thank my father. Jiuyu Holy Sun said calmly. Greetings, Prince Yang. 3 men in scholarly robes walked out from behind Jiuyu Holy Sun. They looked at Yang Chuan arrogantly. Qin King, Chess King, Book King. Qin King, Chess King, Book King. Yang Chuan looked at the 3 of them with disdain. As the saying goes, a full bottle does not move when half the bottle is shaken. The 3 of them were below him, yet they claimed to be the kings of their respective fields. They were inexplicably looked down upon by Yang Chuan. Ha 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 ha, there's no need. Mr. Munro is enough. I've already prepared for the Qin King, Chess King, and Book King. Yang Chuan shook his head and smiled. Oh, you've prepared? Who are they? Are they better than the Qin King and the rest? Jiuyu Holy Sun raised his eyebrows. Seeing Jiuyu Holy Sun's expression, Yang Chuan immediately felt that something was amiss. Mohina Jin sent people to help him? He wasn't familiar with Mohina Jin at all. He must have some other motive. Hihi, you'll know when you see them. Yang Chuan smiled calmly. Chapter 535. Mr. Wang, someone is doubting your Guqin skills. Yang Chuan laughed. As he spoke, the door of the side hall opened. Spider King stepped out and walked towards Yang Chuan. It's you. Jiuyu Holy Sun's eyes turned cold. Jiuyu Holy Sun, how have you been? Which one of you is the Qin Emperor? If your Guqin skills are better than mine, I would like to learn from you. Spider King laughed. On the other side, the Qin Emperor revealed an awkward expression. Ha ha ha, it's you? Did you improve again after our Guqin duel last time? Spider King is looking forward to it. Spider King laughed. The Qin Emperor took a deep breath and sighed. Holy Sun, I'm no match for Spider King. Guu Holy Sun's eyes flashed. However, his expression remained calm as he said, who would have thought? Yang Chuan? You're good to have invited Spider King. Yang Chuan appreciates Mohina Jin's kindness. May I know why Guu Holy Sun has come to Julu City? Yang Chuan laughed. At this moment, Yang Chuan was no longer as cautious as before. Instead, he faced Guu Holy Sun calmly and even spoke in a condescending tone. Guu Holy Sun was unhappy. How could this ant-like person not be afraid of him? Afraid? How could Yang Chuan be afraid of someone who had tried to kill him several times? Mo Yushi said, besides Mr. Munro, the Qin Emperor, the Chess Emperor, and the Book Emperor, Chang San and Chang Sai are also here to help Guu Holy Sun fight for the Tiance. Fight for the Tiance? Yang Chuan narrowed his eyes. Why is Mohina Jin fighting for the Tiance? Chang San and Chang Sai? And the Qin Emperor, the Chess Emperor, and the Book Emperor? Are you trying to steal my investiture of the god's strategy? Although he didn't know why Mohina Jin was doing this, Yang Chuan instantly became vigilant. This time, I'm in charge of fighting for Tiance, but I can't treat the investiture of the gods lightly. There are still 10 days. Listen to my arrangements. Guu Holy Sun said lightly. As soon as Guu Holy Sun spoke, Qing Long, Bai Long, Spider King, and Yi Feng's faces darkened. Mo Yushi raised her eyebrows. She did not expect Guu Holy Sun to be so overbearing. He wanted to seize power as soon as he arrived. The fight for the investiture of the gods was Yang Chuan's business. Guu Holy Sun wanted to interfere. Meow. Meow glared at him. Obviously, it was not happy with Guu Holy Sun. You. Yang Chuan sneered. That's right. I've participated in the Heaven's Gift Conference, so I know most of the procedures. I have my ways to deal with the experts from all sides. I'll make the arrangements. Just listen to me. Guu Holy Sun said in a low voice. Chang San, Chang Sai, Qin King, Chess King, and Book King all nodded. As if it was a matter of course. Who do you think you are? Yang Chuan said coldly. Who do you think you are? Chang San and the others were still in a daze after Yang Chuan's words. Yang Chuan said to Holy Sun, who do you think you are? The square in the East Hall suddenly fell silent. Mo Yushi was originally angry with Guu Holy Sun, but after hearing Yang Chuan's words, she felt relieved. Determination flashed in her eyes, and she looked coldly at Guu Holy Sun with Yang Chuan. The atmosphere in the square suddenly became tense. What did you just say? Guu Holy Sun's eyes turned cold. Yang Chuan dared to challenge his authority. He was only in the Qi state. Did he have a death wish? Meow, Yang Chuan said. Who do you think you are? Meow jumped onto Yang Chuan's shoulder and threatened Guu Holy Sun. Guu Holy Sun glared at him. No matter how well-mannered he was, he could not hold it in anymore. You want me to listen to you? Do you think you're worthy? Yang Chuan said coldly again. Chapter 536. You want me to listen to you? Are you worthy? Yang Chuan said coldly. Are you worthy? Surprise flashed across Mr. Wen Ruo's eyes. Chang San, Chang Sai, Qin King, Chess King, and Book King were in disbelief. Was this kid tired of living? How dare he talk to Guu Holy Sun like that? The four of them looked at Yang Chuan as if they were looking at a dead man. Guu Holy Sun's eyes flashed coldly. A powerful aura was released towards Yang Chuan. Was he trying to challenge his authority again and again? A powerful aura was released. The floor beneath Guu Holy Sun's feet cracked under the pressure and moved towards Yang Chuan. The powerful aura of a middle void stage expert was released towards Yang Chuan. When Mo Yushi saw this, her face immediately sank. Guu, don't you dare. Mo Yushi glared at him. A powerful aura was released. Mo Yushi's aura was tangible. It was like a huge black phoenix shadow was crashing towards Guu Holy Sun. Boom. The two auras collided. Guu Holy Sun's face changed. He looked at Mo Yushi coldly. Mo Yushi, are you trying to go against Mohina Jin's orders? Gu Holy Sun asked in a serious tone. Ph. Mohina Jin did not say anything to me. Mo Yushi said coldly. Yang Chuan held Mo Yushi's hand gently. Mo Yushi turned her head in confusion. Yang Chuan smiled and pulled Mo Yushi behind him. I have my reasons for saying that he's unworthy. Just watch. Yang Chuan's smile was like the light of dawn on the snowy ground, incomparably radiant. Seeing this, Mo Yushi unconsciously nodded her head, but a trace of curiosity flashed in her eyes. Where did Yang Chuan get his confidence from? In Mo Yushi's eyes, Yang Chuan's cultivation had increased by leaps and bounds. Although he had reached the 5th stage of the Qijing realm, he was still in the Qijing realm. Although he was a little worried, he still nodded and gave way to Yang Chuan. After handing Miao to Mo Yushi, Yang Chuan turned to look at Gu Holy Sun. Taking a step forward, Yang Chuan blocked Yi Feng, Wang Spider, Mo Yushi and the others behind him. One person coldly looked at Gu, one person facing Gu. Behind him, Yi Feng and the others looked at Yang Chuan worriedly and respectfully. They also looked at Gu as if they were facing a common enemy. Only Wang Spider squinted his eyes and a trace of complexity flashed across his eyes. Because Wang Spider saw the demeanor of a king from Yang Chuan. The demeanor of a man who could hold back 10,000 men. This was the unique charisma of a leader. It wasn't aura or power, it was just a feeling. Wang Spider saw it from Yaro Tianshang. Now, he saw it again from Yang Chuan. This was a unique charisma that came from a person's immense confidence. Wang Spider was worried. He wanted to recommend Yang Chuan to Yaro Tianshang, but could Yang Chuan really be recommended? Yang Chuan stepped forward and looked at Gu coldly. Gu was shocked when he saw Yang Chuan pull Mo Yushi away. Qi state. How dare someone in the Qi state talk back to him? You are not welcome here, except for Mr. Munro. Take your people and get out of the East Palace, Yang Chuan said in a low voice. Kid, do you want to die? Chang San shouted angrily again. Yang Chuan's eyes turned cold and a murderous aura shot out from his eyes. Chang San, who was walking towards Yang Chuan, suddenly shivered as if he was frozen by Yang Chuan's glare. Yang Chuan, this is not up to you. You have to listen to my father whether you want to or not, Gu Holy Sun said coldly. Chapter 537. With that, Gu Holy Sun's aura pressed down on Yang Chuan once again. On the ground, the cracks on the floor became even more pronounced. Crack 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 crack. Gu Holy Sun wanted to teach Yang Chuan an unforgettable lesson. Screech. The Jade Emperor sword on Yang Chuan's back suddenly chimed. Swish. The Jade Emperor sword suddenly flew out by itself. The sword faced Gu Holy Sun. Suddenly, a huge black sword aura appeared and slashed towards Gu Holy Sun. Gu Holy Sun's expression changed as he slapped his palm towards the sword aura. Boom. The sword and palm collided. The Jade Emperor sword suddenly soared into the sky. It stood firmly in the air as if it was floating. Everyone looked at the Jade Emperor sword in the air in shock, including Gu. Buzz. The Jade Emperor sword suddenly vibrated. Tens of thousands of sword auras emerged from the white clouds around the Eastern Palace's floating island. The sword auras were like torrential rain as they rolled over. The sky was filled with sword shadows. Rumble. In an instant, the Eastern Palace was enveloped by the sword auras. From afar, it looked like a huge storm had enveloped the Eastern Palace. Countless cultivators looked up at the sky and looked in the direction of the Eastern Palace in shock. Rumble. Inside the Eastern Palace's square, there were also countless sword auras. Around Yang Chuan, Mo Yushi, and Gu, there were surging sword auras. The endless sword auras pointed towards Yang Chuan as if they were worshipping Yang Chuan. The endless sword auras bowed towards Yang Chuan 3 times before they suddenly slashed towards Gu. What is that? Gu said with a gloomy face. Boom. The storm-like sword Qi came from all directions and headed straight for Gu Holy Sun. You're courting death. Gu shouted as he raised a huge wall of Qi. Boom. 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 Tens of thousands of white sword Qi instantly pierced the Holy Sun's Qi wall, wave after wave. 10 pitch-black swords suddenly emerged from the ground. Like the sword of the Jade Emperor, they instantly pierced through the air wall and headed straight for Guu Holy Sun. Boom! Guu Holy Sun slammed his palm down and collided with the 10 black swords. The huge force instantly sent Guu Holy Sun flying into the sky. Sheeing, 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 sheeing. The white sword chi immediately turned into black sword chi. In an instant, billions of Jade Emperor's swords appeared around the Eastern Hall. They were aimed at Guu Holy Sun with a bloodthirsty killing intent. SSSS, SSSS, SSSS. His terrifying speed and enormous strength cut Guu Holy Sun's wall of air again and again like 1,000 knives cutting it into pieces. No. Bastard. How is that possible? Guu Holy Sun screamed. The chi wall of the Middle Emptiness Realm was actually cut apart by the sword chi of 1,000 cuts. Furthermore, the Jade Emperor's sword shadow was like a swarm of locusts. It was getting closer and closer to him. Guu Holy Sun flipped his hand and took out a long sword. Suddenly, he activated thousands of sword chis and shot them towards the Jade Emperor's sword chis. The Jade Emperor's sword chi was no weaker than Guu Holy Sun's sword chi. Rumble. Wave after wave, the Jade Emperor's sword chi violently washed over Guu Holy Sun. In the blink of an eye, it was right in front of him. Roar. When had Guu Holy Sun ever experienced such a dangerous situation? As he roared, the aura around him erupted like a huge explosion. Boom. A huge amount of Jade Emperor's sword chi flew out. However, even more sword chi instantly closed in on Guu Holy Sun like a swarm of locusts. SSSS, 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 SSSS. Guu Holy Sun's hair was messed up and his clothes were riddled with holes. Chapter 538. Boom. Thousands of sword chi retreated 10 feet away from Guu Holy Sun and aimed at Guu Holy Sun. Standing in the air, Guu Holy Sun looked pathetic. The sword chi lined up like an army and faced Guu Holy Sun coldly. How is this possible? Chang San and Chang Sai exclaimed. Yang Chuan stood with his hands behind his back and Guu Holy Sun looked pathetic. The ancient moon saint child's hair was messy as he looked at Yang Chuan in disbelief. At the same time, he looked at the pitch-black Jade Emperor sword chi around him. Sword array? You can set up a sword array? How is this possible? Your sword has a sword spirit. Guu Holy Sun exclaimed as he looked at Yang Chuan. You know about sword arrays too? Yang Chuan asked calmly. Impossible. Why would a sword spirit listen to you? Sword array? Guu Holy Sun still did not believe Lin Fan. Jade Emperor, chase them out, Yang Chuan ordered. Buzz. In the huge sword storm, a sword chime suddenly sounded, as if it was commanding the thousands of sword chi. Rumble. Countless sword chi surged towards Guu Holy Sun like a raging river. Rumble. Guu Holy Sun tried to defend himself, but the sword array was too powerful. Guu Holy Sun was sent flying and forced out of the East Hall. Do you still want me to invite you out? Yang Chuan looked at Chang San and the others coldly. Chang San and Chang San's hearts raced. Chi state. Is this guy in the chi state? Let's go. Chang San shouted. Boom. Under the pressure of the sword chi, the 5 of them were forced out of the sword array. Rumble. Sword chi surrounded the East Hall. Guu Holy Sun and the other 3 were forced out of the sword array. Even after they came out, they still felt like they were dreaming. Buzz. Tens of thousands of sword chi suddenly exploded, instantly scattering in all directions and disappearing. In midair, the real Jade King sword danced for a while. In the blink of an eye, it arrived in front of Yang Chuan. It flew into the sheath on Yang Chuan's back as though it had never come out. A sword spirit. Was it an immortal sword? Immortal sword array? No wonder. Chang San said with an ugly expression. How could Yang Chuan be so lucky to obtain an immortal sword? In this way, once the immortal sword appears and the sword formation is set up, even intermediate illusionary stage cultivators will not be able to harm him. Chang Sai said with a complicated expression. Not necessarily. As long as you have a good magic treasure, you can still break the sword formation. What a pity. Chang San said with a conflicted expression. Jiu Holy Sun stood in the air and stared coldly at Yang Chuan. Yang Chuan, not killing you back then was the biggest mistake of my life, Jiu Holy Sun said with a chilling tone. Yang Chuan looked at Jiu Holy Sun and said with disdain, the son of a Taoist lord doesn't have a magic treasure? Ha! Yang Chuan's ha was extremely harsh to Jiu's ears. Magic treasure? None of his magic treasures could compare to that black sword. The son of a Taoist lord. Thinking about the magic treasures of the other sons of Taoist lords, Jiu Holy Sun felt an inexplicable hatred for his father. If his father had given him a magic treasure, he would not have been humiliated today. The East Palace does not welcome you. Come again when you can break my Jade King Sword formation, Yang Chuan said lightly. Jade King Sword formation? Just you wait, Jiu Holy Sun said with resentment. Let's go. Jiu Holy Sun instantly flew into the distance. The 5 experts followed closely behind, and in the blink of an eye, they left with the ancient Moon Holy Child. Jade King Sword? When did it become so powerful? Mo Yu she looked at the black sword on Yang Chuan's back in surprise. Yang Chuan turned his head and smiled. It's not that simple. I have already set up a formation around here to prevent the Emptiness Realm cultivators from attacking. I thought I wouldn't need it, but I didn't expect it to come in handy today. I see. Mr. Munro exclaimed. Chapter 539. Just arrived. Yang Chuan looked at Mo Yushi. You've already mentioned this place in your letter, so we naturally rushed over. We've just arrived. Mo Yushi nodded. Prince Yang, the sword formation just now was really powerful, Rosefinch said excitedly. At this time, the Emperor walked out of the East Hall. The Emperor's sudden appearance surprised everyone. They all looked at the Emperor. It's her. Rosefinch and Xuanwu's expressions changed. They still remembered how fierce the Empress was last time. Jade Emperor's sword formation? It's a pity that your cultivation is too low. Otherwise, you wouldn't need the assistance of the formation at all, the Emperor said lightly. Yang Chuan smiled and did not refute. Hey! Rosefinch, Xuanwu, and the others revealed strange expressions. Where do I live? The Emperor asked. Yi Feng, bring His Majesty to the side chamber. Yang Chuan looked at Yi Feng. Yes. Yi Feng nodded. Mo Yu she looked at Emperor in surprise. In the end, she didn't ask anything. Mr. Munro looked at Emperor curiously. Mr. Munro, please come in, Yang Chuan said with a smile. All right. When Ruo nodded. Yang Chuan and Mo Yu she looked at each other and smiled. They did not exchange any pleasantries and walked towards the East Hall together. Spider King looked at Yang Chuan with a complicated expression. He shook his head and returned to his side chamber. Qing Long, Bai Long, Rosefinch, and Xuanwu were waiting outside the hall. Meow, Sister Mo, do you have any more of these immortal stone shards? Meow whispered to Mo Yushi. Meow, you're too greedy. Yang Chuan's face stiffened. Meow, I was just asking. I didn't say I wanted it. Meow felt wronged. I still have one, but it's not with me. If you like it, I'll give it to you in the future, Mo Yushi said. Meow, Sister Mo is the best. Meow's eyes lit up. All these years in Julu City, I've learned a lot about Mr. Munro. Yang Chuan is very grateful that Mr. Munro is willing to help me, Yang Chuan said with a smile. Prince Yang, you flatter me. I'm just an abandoned student who was expelled from the academy, Wen Ruo said bitterly. Abandoned disciple? Haha, on the contrary, I think Mr. Munro is a genuine person. He didn't hesitate to leave Julu Academy and go to the Dazhao Holy Land. Yang Chuan took a deep breath and sighed. Wen Ruo smiled bitterly and said, let's not talk about this. Prince Yang, 2 years ago in Julu City, he fought a group of Confucians with his literary skills. It shocked the world. Even from a million miles away, I could feel his literary skills. Oh, the news spread that fast. Yang Chuan was surprised. The Heavenly Bestowment Conference is about to begin. Julu City has already become the focal point of the East. News of any major event will spread to the world. With hundreds of beautiful essays, young Master Yang's name has already spread across the world. Mr. Wenruo said with certainty. Spread across the world? Haha, Mr. Munro, you flatter me. Yang Chuan shook his head and smiled. But, Mr. Munro frowned. What? Prince Yang, you better not look down on Sima Yuntian because of that literary battle. His disciples can't represent Sima Yuntian, Mr. Munro said seriously. Oh, Prince Yang, what do you think of my painting? Wenruo asked. Although I haven't seen your painting, a lot of information from Julu Academy shows that Mr. Munro's painting is unparalleled. Once he paints, he moves the world. He paints the world, Yang Chuan said seriously. Indeed. When my father was still alive, he also admired Mr. Munro. He said that Mr. Munro was born for painting. Mo Yushi nodded. Wenruo smiled bitterly and said, perhaps the saint and Prince Yang don't know. My first teacher was Sima Yuntian. Chapter 540. Oh! Yang Chuan narrowed his eyes. This was the first time Yang Chuan had heard of this. Sima Yuntian. I haven't seen him for hundreds of years. He's really a genius. He's good at music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. If Prince Yang hadn't competed with him, I'm sure he would have gotten the investiture of the gods. Wenruo said confidently. How can you be so sure? Then tell me, what kind of person is this great sage Sima Yuntian? Yang Chuan asked solemnly. Yang Chuan had been prepared for this, and he had felt that victory was within his grasp. But now, he didn't expect Mr. Munro to praise Sima Yuntian so much. Sima Yuntian, AO. Mr. Munro said. AO. I don't know why, but there's a rule in the Julu Academy. The Sima family can't be the head of the academy. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't become the head of the academy. Sima Yuntian didn't feel good about it, so he gave up the position and traveled the world. I still remember what he said before he left. Mr. Munro recalled. What did he say? He said that when he returned, he would defeat all the heroes of the Julu Academy. Mr. Munro said solemnly. Oh, that's interesting. Yang Chuan's eyes flashed with anticipation. Anyway, Prince Yang, you have to be careful. Since I've promised the saint, I'll do my best. Mr. Munro said with a bitter smile. From Mr. Munro's tone, Yang Chuan could tell that something was wrong. It was as if Mr. Munro didn't believe that he could win. He didn't believe that he could win. Sima Yuntian? Was he really that powerful? Thank you. Yang Chuan nodded. Julu City, on a huge floating island. On the floating island, there was a large hall. The Hall of Sima. Liu Zilu, Chen Ping, Wang Long, and a group of scholars stood on both sides. There was a total of 72 white-robed Confucians. Their expressions were extremely respectful as they faced a man sitting on a chair in the north of the Sima Hall. A middle-aged man in a green robe with a tall hat on his head appeared to be around 40 years old. He had a handsome face and a small mustache on his chin. His eyebrows were sharp like swords and his eyes were sharp. His hands were placed on the armrests and the middle finger of his right hand was gently tapping the armrest. The middle-aged man looked at the center of the hall. There were a total of 60 chess sets and 101 calligraphy scrolls. Great scholar Liu Zilu stepped out of the ranks and said respectfully, "Teacher, these are all copied by us. At the pinnacle of the literary gathering, we have embarrassed teacher." The azure-robed man was Grand Paragon Sima Yuntian. With a wave of his hand, a feather fan appeared in his palm. Mr. Munro also had one, but Mr. Munro's feather fan was white, while Sima Yuntian's was green, as if it was made of peacock feathers. Good writing. Good poem. Good poem. Sima Yuntian suddenly laughed. Sima Yuntian didn't blame his disciple. Instead, he felt like he had seen a hunter. At this moment, another great scholar stepped out and said, "Teacher, I have also seen these poems. 101 pieces, 101 styles. It's really incredible." Sima Yuntian nodded and didn't object. "Teacher, will this person be an obstacle to teacher?" Liu Zilu asked worriedly. Sima Yuntian smiled and said, "Just these poems are not enough. There's no need to worry." Yes. All the great scholars were overjoyed. "Teacher, I have also memorized these 60 chess sets. When the time comes, I will not disappoint teacher," another disciple said respectfully. Chapter 541. Millimeter. Sima Yuntian looked at the 60 chessboards. His eyes flashed with admiration. "Teacher, is the place we entered really called the World of Light? You knew about it before?" Liu Zilu asked curiously. "Yes, I knew about it long ago, but I never went in. It's a pity," Sima Yuntian said lightly. "Oh." Liu Zilu did not say anything else. "Go and prepare," Sima Yuntian said lightly. "Yes." The disciples nodded. Then, they all left the hall. Sima Yuntian was the only one left in the hall. He sat in the hall and looked at Julu Mountain outside the hall. Sima Yuntian, am back. I mean what I say. The God Investiture strategy? I don't just want the God Investiture strategy. I want justice for my Sima family." Sima Yuntian's eyes shone. 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. The Heavenly Bestowment Conference was about to begin. East Hall. A large number of Confucian cultivators had already gathered outside the hall. Yang Chuan did not know most of these Confucian cultivators. They came of their own accord. After the peak literary meeting, Yang Chuan's name had spread throughout Julu City. He was worshipped by thousands of Confucian cultivators. These Confucian cultivators were convinced by Yang Chuan's literary talent. They came of their own accord with blind worship. It was not to befriend Yang Chuan, but to witness a new miracle today. Yang Chuan, Mo Yuxi, Emperor, Yi Feng, Wang Zhu, Qing Long, and the others came out of the East Hall and were greeted by a large number of Confucian cultivators. "Greetings, Mr. Yang, Mr. Yi," the Confucian cultivators said. Yang Chuan looked at the Confucian cultivators and nodded. He stepped forward and led everyone to the venue of the Heavenly Bestowment Conference. Thousands of Confucian cultivators followed behind and rushed to the Heavenly Bestowment Square. The so-called Heavenly Bestowment Square was actually the square outside the 100 Saints' Altar of Righteousness. The registration in the past was at the God Investiture Hall there. Yang Chuan and his group were followed by thousands of Confucian cultivators. On the other side, Sima Yuntian straightened his long robe and flew towards the Heaven's Gift Square with his 72 disciples. Just like Yang Chuan, behind Sima Yuntian were tens of thousands of Confucian cultivators. Today, there were countless practitioners, but most of them were in small groups. In the entire Julu city, only Yang Chuan and Sima Yuntian could gather such a large group of scholars. If one were to look down at Julu city from above, they would realize that Yang Chuan and Sima Yuntian were like the moon surrounded by stars. They were the two brightest pearls in the city. It was as if the Heaven's Gift Conference was held solely for these two bright pearls. On the way to the Heaven's Gift Square, more and more people gathered. The group grew larger and larger. On the Heaven's Gift Square, Meng Ziqiu and the others had not yet arrived, but there were already countless experts from various sects gathered there. Especially at the entrance of the main hall, the ancient Yu Holy Child and his 5 subordinates were looking coldly at the crowd in the distance. Seeing that one of the groups was led by Yang Chuan, Yu Holy Son's face darkened. There were already more than 8,000 people gathered in the square. They were all sects competing for the Tiance. A gathering of more than 8,000 people was rare in the past Heaven's Gift conferences. The Heaven's Gift Conference was a competition for the Tiance and the God's Bestowment strategy. But in the past, only the Tiance was the main character. A gathering of more than 8,000 people was very spectacular. Previously, they did not think much of the competition for the God's Bestowment strategy. After all, there were only 2 people. How big of a scene could it be? However, the vast group in front of them petrified the cultivators of the countless sects. Are my eyes playing tricks on me? There are more than 30,000 people on Yang Chuan's side. Sima Yuntian's side also has more than 30,000 people. So many people. What are they doing? Competing for the God's Bestowment strategy. This momentum is too exaggerated. The scene of 60 to 70,000 people suddenly paled in comparison to the grand scene of the Tiance. The difference was almost 10 times. Chapter 542. The World of Radiance. In a small forest. The beautiful sound of a zither echoed through the forest. A large number of birds had appeared in the forest. The birds circled the forest and danced in the air. Ding! The sound of the zither suddenly stopped. Chirp, 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 chirp. The birds scattered in all directions. There was an exquisite house in the forest. Outside the house, Meng Rongrong, dressed in white, hugged her zither and sighed. She turned her head and looked at a jade box on a stone table. Looking at the jade box, Meng Rongrong could not help but tear up. She grabbed the jade box and wanted to open it, but she could not do so. Should she open it? Perhaps if she opened it, it would mean that she had given in and forgiven that bastard. No, I will never forgive you, bastard, bastard. Wiping her tears, Meng Rongrong let go of the jade box, but she did not open it. Instead, she kept the jade box. After keeping the jade box, Meng Rongrong looked up at the sky with a disappointed expression. Sigh. After packing up her zither, Meng Rongrong carried it back to her house. At the peak of a mountain not far away, two people stood at the peak of the mountain, Dongfang Zhengpai and Meng Lingtian. The two of them watched as Meng Rongrong entered the house. Dongfang Zhengpai, what was in the jade box? Meng Lingtian asked. How would I know? Old Meng, no, teacher, how many times have you asked me? How would I know? Dongfang Zhengpai said gloomily. You were the one who gave me the jade box, who else should I ask? Meng Lingtian said. I really don't know. Why don't you expel me from the sect and let me out? The Heavenly Bestowment Conference has already begun and you won't let me watch. Dongfang Zhengpai complained. Meng Lingtian looked at Dongfang Zhengpai. Dongfang Bubai, how did you have a descendant like you? Meng Lingtian asked with a strange expression. That's just how I am. Isn't it good to live a carefree life? Isn't it tiring to think so much every day? Teacher, I think you should just leave me to fend for myself. In any case, I'm useless. Dongfang Zhengpai said expectantly. Even if you're trash, I'll still educate you into a rock. Otherwise, how would I explain it to the founding ancestor when I arrive at the immortal dimension? You give up on this thought. Among this group of people, if you don't reach number 1, you can forget about going out forever, Meng Lingtian said in a solemn voice. Heavens, how can you do this? That Meng Rongrong is your grandchild, you should take care of her, why are you staring at me? Dongfang Zhengpai lamented. Meng Rongrong doesn't need me to worry. She only needs to look at that jade box once, and her zither Dao will improve once. Don't you feel it? The sound of the zither just now was not deliberate at all, but it was full of vitality, like a flock of birds gathering. Meng Lingtian stroked his beard and smiled with satisfaction. Every time I look at the jade box, I can level up once. Damn, why didn't Yang Chuan give me a jade box? Dongfang Zhengpai was speechless. Scoundrel, cultivating the way of the sage, you actually spout such filthy words. Go back and copy the words of the sage 100 times. Meng Lingtian said coldly. Heavens! It's too dark. Dongfang Zhengpai cried. You actually dare to say that my teaching is dark? Copy it 200 times. Meng Lingtian shouted. No. Dongfang Zhengpai's miserable voice came from the radiant world. Heaven's Gift Square. Yang Chuan arrived at the Heaven's Gift Square with more than 30,000 Confucian cultivators. Similarly, on the other side, Sima Yuntian also arrived at the square with more than 30,000 Confucian cultivators. Chapter 543. From afar, Yang Chuan saw Sima Yuntian, and Sima Yuntian also saw Yang Chuan. The rules of the Heaven's Gift Square forbade flying, so everyone naturally landed on the square. Far away, Yang Chuan and Sima Yuntian suddenly stopped in the middle of the plaza. The two of them faced each other and looked at each other from a distance. The 70,000 Confucian cultivators all held their breaths. Looking at the two hot favorites for the God's Bestowment Scroll, their eyes were filled with anticipation. The competition for the God's Bestowment Scroll had yet to begin, so would the two start fighting? This was also the first time Yang Chuan sized up Sima Yuntian. In an instant, Yang Chuan's gaze shifted to Sima Yuntian's eyes. Those were a pair of extremely bright eyes, filled with a sense of wisdom, and at the same time, a sense of arrogance that ignored everything. Yang Chuan's eyes flashed, as if he thought of something, and smiled meaningfully. As for Sima Yuntian, it was unknown what he thought of, but he also smiled meaningfully. The two looked at each other and smiled, then ignored each other and walked deeper into the square. The 70,000 Confucian cultivators were at a loss. The first confrontation between the two was over. Was this a confrontation? A mutual smile? Experts are indeed different. Yeah, maybe they already fought just now, but you and I couldn't see it. They're both people with great wisdom. How could you see it? Around Guu Holy Sun, there was a burst of discussion. Yang Chuan and Sima Yuntian looked at each other and smiled brightly. In Guu Holy Sun's ears, he felt uncomfortable. The ants that should be crawling under his feet were now being praised by everyone. He was the Holy Son of the Holy Land, someone whose status was equal to the Julu Academy's president, but he was ignored like this. Taking a deep breath, Guu Holy Sun suppressed the irritation in his heart. This time, his father had given him a mission. He could not afford to make any more mistakes. At this moment, a large number of Julu Academy disciples rushed out from the mouth of the mountain on the 100 Saints' Righteousness altar. The fog around the mouth of the mountain slowly dissipated. One could vaguely see Meng Ziqiu, Yu Yi, and 5 white-robed elders bowing respectfully to Goddess Jichen in the 100 Saints' Righteousness altar. After 3 bows, the 7 of them turned around and looked at the Heaven's Gift Square. Mo Yushi explained, Meng Ziqiu, Yu Yi, and those 5 old men are all virtuous paragons of the Julu Academy. They usually don't care about the administration of the academy and are probably traveling around. They only came back for the conference. Virtuous paragons? Yang Chuan looked at the 7 and gently nodded his head. Meng Ziqiu was at the front with the 6 paragons behind him. They walked to the edge of the mountain and looked at the tens of thousands of people in the square. Meng Ziqiu took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, "The Heavenly Bestowment Conference has officially begun. Please send a token to the heavens. Please, Tianzi." Yes. The group of Confucians shouted. Then, the Confucians in the Sky Hall and the God Bestowment Hall respectfully took out tokens. In the God Bestowment Hall, there were 2 tokens with Yang Chuan and Sima Yuntian written on them. In the Sky Hall, there were many tokens. A total of 800 tokens with 800 names were taken out, representing 800 sects. The tokens were sent to the 100 Saints' Righteousness altar and to the feet of Goddess Jichen. At this moment, 2 white altars appeared under Goddess Jichen's feet. They looked like 2 huge pieces of white jade floating in the air. One of them had the word God Bestowment written on it, while the other had the word Heaven written on it. Yang Chuan and Sima Yuntian's tokens went up to the God Bestowment altar. The other 800 went up to the rooftop. Meng Ziqiu flicked his robe and looked at Goddess Jichen's statue. The entire Heaven's Gift Square was silent. Everyone was looking at Meng Ziqiu. Today, the successor of the Julu Academy, Meng Ziqiu, kowtows to Goddess Jichen and the heavens. 100 years have passed in a hurry. The world is blessed and prosperous. With my life token as a witness, I ask the heavens for a reward. I hope the heavens will reward me and make the world prosper, Meng Ziqiu shouted. After that, golden light suddenly shot out from Meng Ziqiu's body and into the Sea of Providence. Roar, 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 roar. Above the Sea of Providence, the 5 golden dragons of Providence suddenly roared and shot into the sky. Then, 2 of the 5 golden dragons of luck suddenly swooped down. Their roars were mixed with a strong sense of excitement. Roar, roar. The 2 dragons rushed down and opened their mouths to bite the God Bestowment altar and the rooftop. With the 2 altars in their mouths, they flew toward Goddess Jichen's statue with more than 800 names and slowly rose into the sky. Boom. They rushed through the Sea of Providence and continued to soar into the sky. Boom. 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 For a moment, the distant sky was filled with lightning and thunder. Countless bolts of lightning kept striking the 2 dragons. Their bodies gradually faded, but they continued to soar into the sky. They broke through the layers of thunderclouds and soared into the sky until they couldn't be seen anymore. Pray to the heavens! Pray to the heavens! Meng Ziqiu shouted. On the Heaven's Gift Square, almost everyone bowed respectfully to Goddess Jichen, including Yang Chuan and Sima Yuntian. Everyone was silently waiting. About 2 hours later. Boom! There was a sudden explosion in the sky. The sound was so loud that it seemed to resound through the entire world. Whoosh! Whoosh! 2 weak golden dragons fell from the sky. They were the golden dragons of Providence from before. The 2 golden dragons of Providence were extremely illusory, as if they were about to dissipate. Boom! The 2 dragons fell into the Sea of Providence. Whoosh! A large amount of Providence gathered toward the 2 dragons. The 2 dragons fell asleep, exhausted. Boom! Boom! 2 beams of golden light fell from the sky and crashed into the Sea of Providence. Roar! 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 The remaining 3 golden dragons of Providence circled around the 2 beams of golden light. The golden light gradually condensed into 2 huge scrolls. On the scrolls were the words Heaven and Investiture of the Gods. Hum! Hum! The 2 scrolls were connected to the power of the Sea of Providence. Suddenly, 802 beams of light shot down, instantly enveloping the 802 people below. Yang Chuan, Sima Yuntian, and a large number of people who had participated in the battle for the Tianci. Boom! The endless dark clouds in the sky dispersed. Apart from the 2 scrolls in the Sea of Providence, the world was bright as if nothing had happened. Heaven's Gift, Tianci, and Investiture of the Gods. The Julu Academy will arbitrate. Everyone, let's decide who the Tianci belongs to. Meng Ziqiu shouted. Boom! The Heaven's Gift Square trembled. Then, a huge square platform that was 100 feet wide and 10 feet tall slowly protruded. Above the Sea of Providence, a large amount of golden light shone, illuminating the huge platform. Goddess Jichen, please bear witness. The battle for the Tianci begins, Meng Ziqiu said respectfully. Chapter 544. Julu City. Heaven's Gift Square. The golden light of Providence illuminated the huge arena below. The surroundings of the arena seemed to have formed a huge cover, preventing too much of the impact from leaking out. 2 peerless experts were fighting on the arena. Both of them cultivated their physical bodies and fought with their fists. Boom! 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 Their powerful fists collided with each other, creating a deafening boom. Those who ascended the ring were practically all lower void stage powerhouses. Its might was also extremely vast. One could see the forceful twisting of the air within. If it were not for the barrier formed by the Sea of Providence clouds covering the arena, it would definitely have spread to the surroundings. Guu Holy Sun sat on a chair with 5 subordinates standing behind him. Among them, Chang 3 and Chang 4 were enveloped in a golden light. It was obvious that Chang 3 and Chang 4 had signed up to compete for the Tianci. Chang San, what do you think? Guu Holy Sun asked calmly. Holy Sun, don't worry. Chang Sai and I have both reached the late stage of the inferior emptiness stage. We will definitely obtain the final victory. Chang San said solemnly. Guu Holy Sun said in a deep voice, don't let your guard down. 800 people, almost all of them are in the lower void realm. You guys are definitely not the only ones who have reached the late stage of the lower void realm. Yes, let them fight first. When everyone is exhausted, Chang Sai and I will join in. Chang San nodded. Holy Sun, don't worry. I'm here to assist Chang San this time. I'll definitely help Chang San win to the end, Chang Sai said solemnly. Guu Holy Sun nodded in satisfaction. Father purposely expelled all of you from the Dazhao Holy Land for today. Once we obtain the Tianci, all of you will once again become perfected beings of the Dazhao Holy Land. Furthermore, all of you will be allocated the same resources as me, perfected lords. Yes, we will definitely win the Tianci, Chang San said excitedly. Guu Holy Sun nodded and turned to look coldly at Yang Chuan. Yang Chuan was also enveloped in a golden light, but it was the golden light of the God Bestowment Scroll. However, A short-haired lady behind him was enveloped in the golden light of the Tiance. Do you see that lady? Gu Holy Sun said. Achem. Chang San and Chang Sai were puzzled. When the time comes, kill him, Gu Holy Sun said coldly. You Holy Son of the Holy Son of the Holy Land. The Emperor's 5 emptiness scroll, the Holy Sun Emperors of the heavens. Perhaps the Emperor's senses were too strong. He instantly sensed the killing intent directed at him and turned his head. The of the Holy Land of you of the Tian land of the of the Holy Land. The Emperor's look was even more contemptuous than that of Yang Chuan. Gu Holy Sun was enraged. You are just an immortal state warrior. How dare you? Gu Holy Sun's eyes flashed coldly. The murderous look in his eyes intensified. However, the Emperor was no longer looking at him. It was as if he was a nobody. Gu Holy Sun was frustrated by the Emperor's attitude. Bastard. Gu Holy Sun crushed the armrest of his chair in anger. Boom. There was a loud noise in the arena. Fart. One of the fighters spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. He had lost. Buzz. The golden light that enveloped him suddenly shifted to the winner. Tiance had announced the result. I lost. The man who fell to the ground said bitterly. Me. The winner did not give up and kicked the loser's leg with a loud bang. Crack. Chapter 545. The loser's leg was broken by the kick. Ha 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 ha, who told you to hurt me? I'll break your leg and teach you a lesson, the winner roared. Meng Zichou frowned and said, Fierce barbarian, he has already admitted defeat. Why do you have to kill him? Meng Zichou, I respect you as the Dean of Julu Academy, but the arena is our battlefield. I'll kill you if I want to, Fierce barbarian shouted. Meng Zichou raised his eyebrows and took a deep breath. He didn't say anything because he knew that those who fought from the beginning would rarely make it to the end. Fierce barbarian was so arrogant that there must be other experts who would teach him a lesson. Okay, Fierce barbarian wins. Who else? Meng Zichou shouted. Meng Zichou's shout made many cultivators consider. After all, it was just the beginning. Only those hotheads would fight so early. At this time, Empress, who was next to Yang Chuan, suddenly took a step forward. Her. Mo Yu, she said in surprise. Don't worry about her, Yang Chuan said with a smile. Okay. Mo Yu, she nodded. Empress stepped forward. Because the battle had begun, the arena was empty. Empress stepped forward and immediately attracted everyone's attention. Especially when she stepped out next to Yang Chuan. Sima Yuntian, Meng Zichou, and the others were curious. Fighter, Empress. A Confucian cultivator who was in charge of recording immediately announced Empress's name. Empress stepped onto the arena. Empress. Countless cultivators around guessed who she was. Ha ha ha, little girl, your thighs are not even half as thick as my arms. You want to fight me? Fierce barbarian laughed. Little girl, what's your cultivation now? Fierce barbarian laughed evilly. God realm. Empress said indifferently. God realm. Ha ha ha, you're only in the God realm? Although you're a little cold, I like this kind of woman. Fierce barbarian suddenly laughed. Get down now, and I'll spare your life. Empress said coldly. Spare my life? A little God realm cultivator? How about I let you use one hand and one foot? Fierce barbarian stepped forward. Countless experts around them all looked at Empress pitifully. It's over. A God realm cultivator dares to step onto the arena? She came with Yang Chuan. It doesn't matter who he comes with. That fierce barbarian is too fierce. Yeah, what a pity. Meng Man walked over proudly as people were talking about him. You've already lost your chance. The Emperor raised his head and narrowed his eyes. Sheeing. There was a sound of a knife, and a green light flashed. Meng Man, who was walking forward, suddenly stopped in his place. His eyes were full of disbelief. Boom. The head of the fierce barbarian suddenly fell to the ground. Blood spurted 3 feet high from his neck. Gululu. The fierce barbarian's head rolled to the side. Ah! All the cultivators in the surroundings suddenly fell silent. Wasn't this too fast? If they hadn't seen the bronze saber in the Emperor's hand, no one would have believed that the saber attack just now was actually the Emperor's. The square was completely silent. After 5 breaths of time, it was as if a pot had exploded. Impossible, she can't be in the divine realm. Meng Man was careless. It must be. She sneaked an attack. Am I dreaming? There was a lot of noise around, but Meng Zixiu saw clearly that the Emperor was indeed in the divine realm. Only in the divine realm? However, this was too exaggerated. How could he kill someone who was at a higher level than him so cleanly? Meng Zixiu suddenly had a feeling, and a figure suddenly flashed in his mind. Yang Dao. Yes, Yang Dao. 100 years ago, Yang Dao also killed people in this arena with his divine realm cultivation. He won the Tian Ce in one fell swoop, and the name of Blood Demon spread all over the world. Chapter 546. Was the Empress in front of them the same? Moreover, she came with Yang Chuan. Buzz. The golden light that was originally gathered on barbarian Meng suddenly gathered on the Empress. The Empress has won. Who else wants to fight? Meng Zixiu shouted. Meng Zixiu's shout made the experts believe the truth in front of them. Fight. Who's going to fight now? For a moment, the crowd was silent again. The Empress looked around and suddenly focused on Jiyu Holy Sun. Who wanted to kill me just now? Come on. The Empress said lightly. The Empress's words immediately attracted everyone's attention to Jiyu Holy Sun. Jiyu Holy Sun? Is she provoking Jiyu Holy Sun? Suddenly, someone was surprised. Jiyu Holy Sun narrowed his eyes. Chang San and Chang Sai narrowed their eyes, full of murderous intent. They clenched their fists and looked at Jiyu Holy Sun, waiting for Jiyu Holy Sun's order. What's wrong? Are you afraid now? Come on up together, the Empress said lightly. The Empress's indifferent tone had a huge impact. Many people knew Chang San and Chang Sai. They were at the advanced stage of the lower void realm. Was this woman crazy? She was just lucky just now. Now she wanted to compete with Chang San and Chang Sai? She even wanted to fight 1 against 2? She's crazy. This Empress is sick in the head. Even if she wants to die, she shouldn't have come here. The crowd didn't believe the Empress, but Jiyu Holy Sun couldn't sit back and do nothing. Chang Sai, you go. Jiyu Holy Sun said lightly. Yes. I'll take this crazy man's head. Chang Sai nodded. Buzz. Chang Sai took out a long saber and stepped on the high platform. Show me what you're capable of. How dare you challenge me? Chang Sai's eyes were cold. Whoosh. The Empress's speed reached a terrifying level. In just a moment, a black shadow shot toward Chang Sai like a sharp arrow. Screech. Bam. The sound of the long saber cutting through the wind and the sound of blood gushing out could be heard. The Emperor stopped behind Chang Sai. Gululu. Chang Sai's head rolled to the ground. Clean and nimble, even cleaner and nimbler than before, too fast. Killed with a single strike. SSSS, SSSS, SSSS. Gasps could be heard all around. Chang Sai. Chang San suddenly roared. Chang San and Chang Sai were blood brothers. How could their younger brother die in the blink of an eye? Chang Sai was too careless. Jiyu Holy Sun's face darkened. Jiyu Holy Sun could see the Emperor's speed clearly, but Chang Sai could not. In the blink of an eye, his head rolled to the ground. Sheeing. Chang San raised his saber and his eyes were bloodshot. He was about to take his revenge on the arena. Chang San. Jiyu Holy Sun shouted coldly. Holy Sun, she killed my brother. Chang San Jiaohu said. Stop right there. Jiyu Holy Sun shouted. After being shouted at by Jiyu Holy Sun, Chang San calmed down a lot. No matter how unwilling he was, he could only listen angrily. He stood behind Jiyu Holy Sun and looked at the Emperor on the arena with murderous eyes. The golden light around the Emperor deepened again. Emperor, who else wants to fight? Meng Zixiu frowned and shouted. After Meng Zixiu shouted, the crowd fell silent again. Many people did not know the Emperor well. Just now, 2 lower void stage experts had died in a daze. The strong cultivators fell silent or started to discuss. The emperor stood on the arena and looked around. Seeing that no one was coming up, a trace of contempt flashed in his eyes. "Come up together," the emperor said indifferently. For a moment, the square was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Some cultivators could not believe what they had just heard and dug their ears. "Senior brother, did you hear that? What did the emperor say?" A cultivator looked at the cultivator beside him and asked. The emperor said, "Come up together," another cultivator said with a strange expression. "Ah, did I hear wrongly?" The emperor's words were like a challenge to the 800 emptiness realm experts. He was challenging all the strong cultivators. "Come up together. Come up together. Come up together." Chapter 547. Transen Tien Ce, come at me together. Arrogant. Incomparably arrogant. The Heaven's Gift Square was in an uproar. There was only one person who was making noise, the emperor who was standing in the arena, a woman in the immortal state. She dared to say such arrogant words after killing 2 lower void realm cultivators. "Come at me together." She was looking down on the 800 cultivators who were fighting for the Tien Ce. She was looking down on them. Meng Ziqiu frowned and looked at the emperor. Was the woman in front of him too murderous? No, it was more like she didn't care about these opponents at all. She just wanted to get the Tien Ce as soon as possible. Sima Yuntian sat on a chair at the side. A disciple served him tea respectfully. Sima Yuntian sipped the tea and looked at the emperor on the arena with narrowed eyes. Then, Sima Yuntian looked at Yang Chuan, who was not far away. "Will the emperor be in danger?" Mo Yu, she asked worriedly. "Don't worry." Yang Chuan shook his head. Although the emperor was only in the immortal state, he had inherited the legacy of the most powerful man in the world 10,000 years ago. His father, the knife demon, was even a powerful immortal. It would be strange if the emperor was defeated here. Yes. Mo Yu, she nodded. At the Guu Holy Sun's place. "You're courting death." Chang San looked at the emperor coldly. The emperor looked coldly at the crowd and said, "I won't kill those who admit defeat. If you want to die, come at me. Damn it, I'm being looked down on by a little girl. Arrogant girl, you're courting death. Humph, you can live with your sins, but you can't live with your sins." Suddenly, 10 lower void realm cultivators stepped on the arena. Each of them held their own weapons and surrounded the emperor. Even though they were bullying the weak with numbers, the 10 experts didn't dare to be careless. The 2 lower void stage experts who died just now were examples. Moreover, all the lower void stage experts understood that when the emperor killed them, he didn't just chop off their heads, he also destroyed their primordial spirits. 2 lower void realm cultivators were killed cleanly and cleanly. Kill. 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 The 10 cultivators rushed at the emperor almost at the same time. The emperor's eyes turned cold as he stomped his foot. Boom. A vast amount of saber chi instantly erupted from the arena. Millions of saber chi seemed to come from the ground and soared into the sky. It was like a great river flowing against the heavens. The cold saber chi instantly caused the temperature of the entire Heaven's Gift Plaza to drop by a lot. Rumble. Surging saber chi soared into the sky, instantly enveloping the 10 experts. From the outside, one could not see the figure inside at all. One could only see the vast and mighty saber chi soaring into the sky. Hiss. Saber sea. What a terrifying sea of sabers. Is it from the emperor? Is she really in the god realm? The crowd was filled with astonishment. Guu Holy Sun's expression changed. This sea of knives was too similar to the Jade Emperor's sword formation that he had humiliated 10 days ago. However, one was a knife, and the other was a sword. Guu Holy Sun's expression darkened as he looked at Yang Chuan, who was not far away. Yang Chuan's expression remained indifferent, as if it was a matter of course. The tens of thousands of cultivators in the surroundings all watched in shock. Bam! The vast sea of knives disappeared from the plaza in an instant. The emperor's short hair swayed slightly as he stood in the center of the plaza and looked around coldly. Peng! 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 10 heads rolled on the ground again. Blood spurted from their necks. The 10 experts all fell to the ground. The Heaven's Gift Plaza fell into silence again. Meng Ziqiu also looked at the emperor with a blank face at this moment. Chapter 548. How many heavenly gifts conferences had they been through? Even Yang Dao wasn't as exaggerated as this. Was this killing? Was this harvesting? All the golden light gathered toward the emperor. The emperor stood on the arena, looking extremely dazzling. He glanced around coldly. Those who admit defeat can live. The emperor looked down at the audience and said, "Those who admit defeat can live." At this moment, no one dared to criticize the emperor anymore. His terrifying killing speed was simply cheating. How could they compete like this? Standing on the square, the crowd couldn't calm down for a long time. The emperor's gaze fell on a cultivator. I admit defeat," the cultivator said with difficulty. But when he said that, he felt a burst of joy in his heart. The golden light instantly withdrew from the cultivator and gathered toward the emperor. The first person admitted defeat. Next, the surrenders were like a plague, starting from the first person and quickly spreading in all directions. The emperor's gaze landed on all the people who admitted defeat. I admit defeat. I admit defeat. I admit defeat. Meng Ziqiu and Le Yi looked at each other. Dean, what's the background of this emperor? He's even more exaggerated than Yang Dao. Le Yi said bitterly. I'm not sure. Yang Dao, Yang Chuan, and the emperor, these people are all strange. Meng Ziqiu sighed slightly. In the blink of an eye, there were nearly 500 people who admitted defeat in the square. But in the end, there were still people who didn't admit defeat. The last Heavenly Gifts Conference was Yang Dao, and this time it's the emperor. When will it be our turn? If we can't get the Tian Ce, we won't be able to live until the next Heavenly Gifts Conference. Since we're going to die anyway, let's fight together, an old man shouted. Okay. Immediately, hundreds of cultivators jumped into the arena. The emperor's eyes turned cold. With a flip of his hand, the emperor took out a golden pill. As soon as the pill was taken out, a refreshing fragrance could be smelled even below the arena. A quasi-immortal pill? Meng Ziqiu's expression changed. You said that's a quasi-immortal pill? The best pill below the immortal pills? Le Yi said in surprise. That's right, but why is she taking the medicinal pills? Meng Ziqiu asked, puzzled. The emperor swallowed the quasi-immortal pill and looked coldly at the 100 peerless experts. 100 lower void realm experts surrounded the emperor. 1 against 100? The spectating cultivators all had expectant expressions. It was unknown whether they were anticipating the emperor's victory or the emperor's defeat. Jiu Holy Sun narrowed his eyes and stared at the emperor. 100 lower void realm cultivators besieging him? Even he would be in a difficult situation. Emperor? He was dead meat. Boom. Just like before, the violent saber chi once again enveloped the entire arena. The surging saber chi soared into the sky and enveloped everyone on the arena in the blink of an eye. Roar. Kill this girl. Let's attack together. Quick. Rumble. Within the storm of blade energy, the roars of hundreds of emptiness realm experts could be heard. Then, the rumbling sounds of battle could be heard. Emperors were strong, but there was a limit to it. After all, their cultivation was limited. It was impossible to kill 100 lower void realm cultivators as easily as before. Rumble. Fierce battle sounds could be heard from the storm of blade energy. Just as everyone was looking forward to it, a large number of black clouds suddenly gathered above the Sea of Providence. Rumble. The black clouds gathered, and countless lightning flashed in the black clouds. A vast heavenly might pressed down on the arena below. 49 heavenly tribulations? Someone suddenly exclaimed. Someone is going through the 49 heavenly tribulations on the arena. 49 heavenly tribulations are for those in the consummate stage of the God realm. The God realm cultivator on the arena seems to be. Chapter 549. The Sovereign. Is she crazy? Why is she undergoing the tribulation at this time? Is the Sovereign undergoing the tribulation? Amidst the exclamations of countless cultivators, Hundreds of lightning bolts descended from the sky, heading straight for the arena. Rumble. On the arena, lightning bolts and saber chi mixed together. The entire arena seemed to have exploded. Looking from afar, it was extremely resplendent. The surrounding cultivators looked at this scene in horror. Is the sovereign trying to drag everyone down with her? No, I admit defeat. A scream came from the arena. However, the sovereign did not answer him. The huge impact was still coming from the arena. Rumble. After an entire incense stick's worth of time, suddenly, everyone saw that in the storm of saber chi, there seemed to be a vast azure saber chi that was 300 meters wide and 3,000 meters long. Wang. As soon as the vast azure saber chi appeared, killing intent spread out. The surrounding air immediately turned cold in the killing intent. Snowflakes drifted down. The azure saber chi soared into the sky, rushed through the luck cloud sea, and headed straight for the tribulation clouds of the 4 and 9 heavenly tribulation. That is impossible. People thought of a possibility, but no one was willing to admit it. Everyone's hearts seemed to have stopped beating as they stared at the azure saber chi with soaring killing intent in the sky. They did not even blink. It was getting closer and closer to the tribulation clouds. Hong tilde 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 tilde. The vast tribulation clouds of the 4 and 9 heavenly tribulation were cut in half by the azure saber chi. The heavenly tribulation was cut in half. In the square, countless cultivators were dumbfounded as they looked at the tribulation clouds that were cut in half. That was the nightmare of many divine realm cultivators. Only the heavenly tribulation could trample on people. How could they see a person killing a heavenly tribulation? Killing a heavenly tribulation? That was a joke, but it happened in front of everyone. That graceful saber strike was imprinted in everyone's mind. They might not be able to forget it for the rest of their lives. Rumble. The tribulation clouds were cut in half by the azure saber chi, announcing that the tribulation was over. The tribulation clouds slowly dispersed. The heavens gift square was silent. Even the saber chi storm in the square disappeared. Most people did not notice it. They just looked at the sky in a daze, looking at the disappearing tribulation clouds. Impossible. It's fake. It's fake. The heavenly tribulation can be cut in half. It's fake. It's fake. Many shoujo trembled. Who else wants to come up? A soft shout suddenly came from the dazed square. This soft shout caused many people to quiver and look towards the arena together. Above the battle arena, Huang stood quietly in the center. There were more than 100 corpses on the ground. Golden light shone around Huang. He was like a god overlooking all living things. 1 against 100. The emperor had won again. Not only did he kill 100 lower emptiness realm cultivators, he even killed the heavenly tribulation. The emperor looked at a man shrouded in golden light. I admit defeat. That person immediately said. I admit defeat. I admit defeat. I admit defeat. At this moment, who dared to doubt the emperor's ability? Before, he was only at the god layer, but he was already so terrifying. Now, after the 49 heavenly tribulations, he was already at the lower void level. Fight. Fight my ass. If you want to die, then go ahead. Logically speaking, 800 cultivators should have fought for several days and nights, perhaps even more than 10 days. However, at this moment, it was going to end in the blink of an eye. Bursts of golden light gathered towards the emperor. Almost everyone admitted defeat. There was nothing they could do. After all, the person in the arena was a freak. He was too fierce. In the blink of an eye, only Chang San behind Jiu Holy Sun was left. Chang San's face twitched. Should he continue? The emperor slowly looked at Chang San. I will count to 3. The emperor said coldly, holding his long saber. 1. The emperor said indifferently. Everyone looked at Jiu Holy Sun. Jiu Holy Sun's face turned ugly. Holy Sun. Chang San said in a panic. Admit defeat. Jiu Holy Sun was still unwilling. His father had finally given him another task. Was he going to mess it up again? 2. The emperor counted quietly. Holy Sun. Chang San exclaimed. Guu Holy Sun's face was gloomy. He was still unwilling to agree. The Emperor's long saber shook slightly. He was about to speak. I admit defeat, I admit defeat, I admit defeat, Chang San exclaimed. At this moment, he no longer cared about Guu Holy Sun's orders. Whoosh! The golden light retreated from Chang San's body. The last ray of golden light enveloped the Emperor. The Emperor had won. In the battle for Tianci at the Heavenly Bestowment Conference, the Emperor defeated all the cultivators in the shortest time possible. The Emperor was surrounded by golden light, but Guu Holy Sun's face was extremely dark. It was as if he had been slapped in public. This was not a slap from someone else, but from his own subordinate. It was even more painful than being slapped by others. However, at this moment, only a few people were looking at Guu Holy Sun. Most of them were looking at the Emperor in the center of the arena. The Tianci above the Sea of Providence in the sky suddenly trembled. Ka. The Tianci left the Sea of Providence and slowly flew toward the Emperor. Chapter 550. The Tianci gradually shrank into a 1-foot-long scroll and fell into the Emperor's hand. The golden light on the Emperor's body also gathered towards the Tianci. Phew! The Emperor put away the Tianci, looked around, and stepped down from the arena. Even though the battle for the Tianci had ended, the Emperor was still the focus of attention in the Heaven's Gift Square. The Emperor slowly walked towards Yang Chuan. Everyone's eyes were also fixed on the Emperor. I'm leaving. See you again, the Emperor said to Yang Chuan. Yang Chuan seemed to have known this and nodded. Okay. The Emperor walked towards a direction and left the Heaven's Gift Square. The Emperor? Who is he? Does he know Yang Chuan? Whose disciple is the Emperor? The crowd was discussing. Stop, you can't leave. Suddenly, a voice sounded. The voice attracted everyone's attention. It was Guu Holy Sun, who squinted his eyes and stared at the Emperor. The Emperor paused and turned to look at Guu Holy Sun. A trace of doubt flashed in his eyes. You can't leave before the end of the Heaven's Gift Conference, Guu Holy Sun said coldly. Huh? Yang Chuan squinted his eyes and looked at Guu Holy Sun. Before the end of the Heaven's Gift Conference. Could it be that something big was going to happen? Yang Chuan pondered. The Emperor turned his head and ignored Guu Holy Sun, as if he didn't hear him at all. He continued to walk outside. Phew. Guu Holy Sun appeared in front of the Emperor in a flash. I said, you can't leave. Didn't you hear me? Guu Holy Sun's eyes turned cold, and a powerful aura gushed out. The aura of the middle void stage was much stronger than that of the lower void stage. The nearby Xiuzhi were instantly pushed back by this aura. His aura rushed towards the Emperor, but the Emperor did not seem to be affected at all. He walked step by step towards Guu Holy Sun. Ka. The floor began to crack under Guu Holy Sun's powerful aura. But the Emperor still walked forward. Step by step, it was as if he was not under any pressure at all. Countless pairs of eyes around revealed looks of surprise. Slowly, the Emperor walked up to Guu Holy Sun. The Emperor's eyes stared at the ancient moon Saint Sun coldly. Boom! It was as if a long knife had pierced through the Emperor's eyes and stabbed into Guu Holy Sun's mind. A powerful will rushed out. The willpower that Guu Holy Sun was so proud of in the past was so weak in front of Huang Heidao's blade-shaped willpower. It was completely destroyed. Boom! Guu Holy Sun's soul trembled violently. His mind was in a mess. After a while, he finally woke up from his fear. But his spirit had withered a lot. Jingming's sun and moon attendants. You're the son of the sun attendants. You're only at the second level of the middle void stage, and you dare to stop me? If it wasn't for Jingming, you would have died 1,000 times. Those who block me, die. The Emperor said coldly. Stepping forward, Guu Holy Sun instinctively moved aside. His eyes were filled with shock. The Emperor's terrifying willpower had told him everything. No matter how stupid Guu Holy Sun was, he did not dare to stop the Emperor. He was drenched in cold sweat as he watched the Emperor slowly leave. At this moment, Gu Holy Sun did not have the slightest intention to stop the emperor. His eyes were filled with shock. A large number of Xiozhi looked over curiously. Holy Sun? What's going on? Chang-san came over and asked in confusion. The Zither Emperor, Chess Emperor, and Book Emperor also came over. Chapter 551. Gu Holy Sun slowly recovered as he watched the emperor fly into the distance. Everyone was staring at him. The ancient moon saint child suddenly felt uneasy. Previously, he was against the emperor everywhere, but now, it seemed so laughable. Let's go. Gu Holy Sun said in a low voice. They could not stay here any longer. He quickly left the square with the 4 people and Chang-sai's corpse, leaving behind tens of thousands of curious people. Not long after, on a floating island outside the square, Gu Holy Sun and the 4 people looked coldly at the square. Holy Sun, are we letting the emperor go? Chang-san gritted his teeth. Chang-san did not know that the emperor and Gu had already fought. Although he could not do anything to the emperor, he hoped that Gu Holy Sun could help avenge his brother's death. The emperor? Gu Holy Sun's face twitched. Gu Holy Sun did not even want to provoke the emperor. He would leave the emperor to his father. We still have important matters to attend to. Although we lost Tianci, we still have the investiture of God's strategy. Gu Holy Sun shook his head. Yes. Chang-san nodded unwillingly. Everyone stared at the Heaven's Gift Square again. In the square, the shock brought by the emperor was slowly digested by the cultivators. The square was also cleaned up. There were 70 to 80,000 cultivators, and 70,000 of them were Confucian cultivators. They were all supporters of Yang Chuan and Sima Yuntian. The shock was quickly replaced by anticipation. Yang Chuan, Sima Yuntian, and Julu Academy's Confucian cultivators. What kind of competition would there be between the 3 parties? Goddess Ji Chen, please bear witness. The competition for the investiture of God's strategy begins, Meng Ziqiu shouted again. The square suddenly fell silent. It was still the same arena, but this time, it was not a martial battle, but a literary one. On the arena, Yu Yi led 20 Confucian cultivators onto the stage slowly. Yang Chuan led Spider King, Yi Feng, and Mr. Munro into the arena. Mo Yu Shi hugged Miao and waited quietly below. Sima Yuntian led his 72 disciples onto the stage. Yang Chuan, Sima Yuntian, and Yu Yi formed a triangle. The literary battle was about to begin, and the Confucian cultivators all held their breaths. The competition for the investiture of the gods is different from the competition for Tianci. Do you want to win first and then pass the Julu Academy's test, or do you want to pass the test first and then compete? Le Yi asked with a smile. Yang Chuan and Sima Yuntian looked at each other. Test him first. Let's fight later. Sima Yuntian and Yang Chuan said at the same time. Upon receiving this reply, Le Yi nodded. Zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. As long as you can beat the 21 people on the stage in 2 of these, you will pass. What do you want to test first? Yu Yi asked. Go. Sima Yuntian said indifferently. Yang Chuan and Le Yi nodded without any objections. As they stretched out their hands, 2 chessboards slowly appeared on the stage, standing between the 3 of them. Yi Feng. Yang Chuan said indifferently. Yes. Yi Feng nodded. Yi Feng waved his long sleeves and stepped forward. The breeze blew his hair, making him look very free and easy. Mr. Yi. It's really Mr. Yi. Waves of excitement came from below the stage. Sima Yuntian looked at one of his disciples, who nodded and stepped forward. The second senior brother of the 72 Confucians? Zhongshen. The best chess player among Sima Yuntian's disciples? Yu Yi nodded and smiled. I've heard that Mr. Yi's chess skills are amazing. I've been looking forward to it for a long time. Chapter 552. With that, Yu Yi instructed a Confucian scholar to fight Zhongshen, while he walked to Yi Feng's chessboard. Dean Yu is going to fight personally. I heard that Dean Yu is best at the zither and only second in chess. However, he's still a virtuous sage. He's definitely much stronger than those Confucians. Zhong Shun will fight a Confucian scholar, while Mr. Yi will fight a virtuous sage? That's not fair. There were many disgruntled voices below the stage, but the two sides had already sat down. Yi Feng was not afraid at all. Instead, he smiled faintly and said, Julu Academy, virtuous sage? Yi Feng has been looking forward to this for many years. After exchanging some pleasantries, Yi Feng began to play his piece. Clap. The two games officially entered the state of a chess battle. Countless cultivators below the stage saw the pieces on the stage through their spells and focused. Yang Chuan, who was behind Yi Feng, looked at Sima Yuntian not far away. Sima Yuntian was not paying attention to the chessboard at this moment. Instead, he was looking at the 100 Saints' Righteousness altar in the distance, at Meng Ziqiu and the others. Sima Yuntian narrowed his eyes, as if he was thinking about something. In the distance, Meng Ziqiu looked at Mr. Munro, who was behind Yang Chuan, with a complicated look in his eyes. Wen Ruo looked at Meng Ziqiu with a pained expression. Father and son looked at each other, but for a moment, they were both speechless. Separated by a large number of cultivators, Mr. Munro bowed solemnly in Meng Ziqiu's direction. He did not say anything, only bowing. Seeing his son's attitude, Meng Ziqiu's eyes flashed with bitterness for a moment, and he sighed softly. Smack, smack, smack. The sound of pieces being played continued. Thank you. Zhong Shun was the first to win. He won for Sima Yuntian. Teacher. Zhong Shun reported excitedly. Millimeter. Sima Yuntian nodded, his expression unchanged. Zhong Shun returned to the 72 scholars. Everyone was looking at Yi Feng and Yu Yi. One was Mr. Yi, who had risen to fame 2 years ago and had never tasted defeat. The other was a virtuous paragon of the Julu Academy, the left yard's dean. Both of their chess skills had reached the pinnacle. Although it was just the placement of a chess piece without any spells, a whirlwind was generated above the chessboard for no reason, as if it was reflecting the danger on the chessboard. Yi Feng placed his chess pieces very quickly. Although his eyes were blurry, his style of playing chess was unusually sharp. It was as if he was sitting on the battlefield, arranging his troops in battle formations. Troops after troops were charging toward Yu Yi. Yu Yi, on the other hand, played the most common style of chess in the world of cultivators. It was as if he was the master of a sect, commanding his disciples to attack one after another. Flowers bloomed in all directions, and his skillful moves came one after another. It was as if the experts of the sect had come out to fight. One side was the army of the empire, and the other side was the disciples of the sects. It was like a competition between an empire and a sect. Either the sect would conquer the empire, or the empire would annihilate the sect. Kill. Roar. I'm invincible. As the chess pieces were placed, Yu Yi seemed to hear a magnificent army charging over. Although there were not many experts in the army on the chessboard, the army was full of vigor, as if the heavens were helping them. Every time the army pressed over, the experts of the sects would be unable to resist. Smack, smack, smack. As the chess pieces continued to be placed, Yu Yi's expression turned increasingly unsightly. Charge straight in, 10,000 arrows fired. Yi Feng smiled faintly. Clack. Another black chess piece was placed. Suddenly, the chessboard changed. Yu Yi, who was immersed in the chessboard, seemed to see the magnificent army gathered in front of the sects. With Yi Feng's final chess piece, 10,000 arrows were fired, bombarding the tottering sects. The magnificent army roared and charged into the sects. Everywhere they passed, corpses were strewn everywhere. Everywhere they passed, rivers of blood flowed. The foundations of the sects were instantly flattened by the magnificent army. Clack. The chess piece in Yu Yi's hand was crushed by himself. It collapsed. The Empire's army had already annihilated the sects. All that was left were the scattered remnants. There was no way to continue this game. Yu Yi has learned something. Yu Yi stood up and bowed slightly. Thank you for letting me win. Yi Feng smiled and stood up to return the bow. Chapter 553. Mr. Yi won. Someone shouted from the crowd. Mr. Yi won. His opponent is a virtuous paragon. Mr. Yi's chess skills are the best I've ever seen. In the square, more and more people worshipped Yi Feng's chess skills. The cheers grew louder and louder. Le Yi smiled faintly, not minding it at all. After exchanging greetings, the two of them returned to their seat. Zhong Shun and Yi Feng had won. When Le Yi returned, the 20 Confucian scholars looked at him with a bitter expression. The Julu Academy was the most popular place in the East. How could it be defeated so easily? What else do you want to compete next? Le Yi asked. Zither, Yang Chuan said. Sima Yuntian nodded without any objection. Yang Chuan looked at Spider King, who nodded solemnly. Zither was different from chess, it had to be played one by one. Spider King stepped forward, took out a zither, and placed it on his knees. Le Yi looked at Spider King and picked a Confucian scholar. The Confucian scholar also sat cross-legged on the stage, and the two of them began their zither battle. Behind Yang Chuan, Yi Feng frowned. Wang, this Julu Academy is a little strange. I know, Le Yi didn't play the zither, which means that the Julu Academy doesn't care about their losses. Yang Chuan nodded. That means the Julu Academy is deliberately going easy on him? Yi Feng frowned. A little bit, but in the previous game, he didn't. You have the skill, Yang Chuan said solemnly. Yi Feng nodded. Mimicking Yang Chuan, he stood with his hands behind his back and looked at the center of the square. Ding 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 ding. The two zither experts played faster and faster, and in the blink of an eye, sound waves appeared in the center of the square. Rumble. A huge sound river suddenly appeared in the middle of the two great zither players. Above the sound river, the sound waves crashed into each other like a torrential river. Although it wasn't as powerful as the Tiger Tribe's encampment the other day, it wasn't too far off. Ding ding ding. A smile gradually appeared on the Spider King's face. On the other hand, the zither player's expression gradually turned ugly, and he found it increasingly strenuous. Big wave. King Spider laughed. Boom. In the Sound River, a huge wave that was 30 meters tall suddenly appeared and rushed towards the other side. Boom. The huge Sound River suddenly exploded, and the entire Heaven's Gift Square was filled with a loud roar. After the explosion, the sound suddenly stopped. Thank you for letting me win, Wang Zhu smiled. The Guqin master got up and nodded. I've heard about it. Mr. Wang's Guqin skills are indeed much better than mine. Who is he? It's only been a while, and he actually won. Spider King, you don't know? King Spider. There were many discussions in all directions. The King Spider had already retreated to the front of Yang Chuan. Prince Yang didn't disappoint. King Spider said with a smile. Thank you for your hard work. Yang Chuan nodded. Boom. There was an explosion in the sky. Half of the God Bestowment Scroll that was connected to the Sea of Providence suddenly left the Sea of Providence, as if it was certain that Yang Chuan had won. On the God Bestowment Scroll, the light that shone on Yang Chuan became more and more dazzling. Yang Chuan has passed the Julu Academy's test, Yu Yi announced. Yang Chuan smiled and nodded. On the other side, another disciple of Sima Yuntian walked out. That's the head of the 72 great scholars, Qin Se. The audience suddenly recognized him. Sima Yuntian's first disciple? The number 1 zither player, Qin Se? Chapter 554. Qin Se walked out with her zither. On the opposite side, Yang Chuan saw someone familiar from the Julu Academy. It was old Yang, the same old Yang from the investiture hall. Senior brother Qin Se, long time no see. Old Yang smiled. Qin Se nodded and didn't say anything. The two sat down and started playing the zither. Ding 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 ding. The sound of the zither rang out. As the two zither masters plucked the strings, a sound river rushed out. Boom. The sound river collided. In an instant, another sound river was formed. It wasn't as big as King Spider's, but it was still solid. Ding 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 ding. King Spider looked and said, the two of them are on par with each other. It's impossible to determine the winner in a short period of time. Yang Chuan nodded lightly. As expected, although the people below were waiting anxiously, the battle on the stage didn't end. After 2 hours, the sound of the zither was still there. Sima Yuntian squinted his eyes as though he was getting impatient. "Qin-se, stand down," Sima Yuntian suddenly shouted. Ding ding ding. The sound of the zither gradually faded, and the original sound river also disappeared. Gradually, the two sides stopped. "Yes." Qin-se stood up and said respectfully to Sima Yuntian. Sima Yuntian stepped forward. "What? Why did it stop?" Great Sage Sima Yuntian made a move. "Really?" Everyone looked at Sima Yuntian in shock, including Li Yi, Meng Ziqiu, and Old Yang. All of them looked at Sima Yuntian in shock. Sima Yuntian made a move at this time? He wasn't such an impulsive person, right? Yu Yi frowned. Old Yang was on standby. "Greetings, martial uncle. Please enlighten me," Old Yang said respectfully. Sima Yuntian didn't even bother to exchange pleasantries with Old Yang. He didn't even sit down. He held the zither with one hand and placed the other on the zither. "Martial uncle, please forgive me," Old Yang said solemnly. Ding ding ding. Old Yang was in his most powerful state right from the start. The rolling sound river rushed over. Sima Yuntian's eyes narrowed as a cold smile appeared on his face. His right hand plucked the strings of the zither with great force. Dong 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 dong. With just one wave, it sounded like the sound of a war drum. A huge sound wave crashed into the sound river. Boom. Old Yang's sound river suddenly exploded, and the sound waves were so powerful that they rushed towards Old Yang. Boom. Ah! Old Yang screamed as he was sent flying into the sky by the sound waves. Swish. Like a shooting star, he instantly flew out of the arena and towards Meng Ziqiu. Pu. In midair, Old Yang spat out a mouthful of blood. He was seriously injured. Smack. Meng Ziqiu reached out and caught Old Yang. "Dean," Old Yang said bitterly. Old Yang knew that Sima Yuntian's Qin Dao was strong, but he didn't expect it to be this abnormal. One wave, just one wave, and he was defeated like this. Expert. King Spider's face darkened as he looked at Sima Yuntian. "Sima Yuntian?" Yu Yi's eyes turned cold as he shouted. That was his disciple. How could Sima Yuntian bully him? Boom. In the sky, the other half of the God Investiture strategy left the Sea of Providence and floated in the air. Large amounts of golden light gathered towards Sima Yuntian. The Julu Academy's test was over. The God Investiture strategy belonged to Sima Yuntian and Yang Chuan. It was just waiting for the two of them to fight for it. Sima Yuntian didn't look at Yang Chuan. Instead, he hugged his zither and looked at Meng Ziqiu. "Meng Ziqiu, do you still remember what I said before I left?" Sima Yuntian suddenly smiled arrogantly. Chapter 555. The Julu Academy scholars' expressions changed. "I said that when I return, I will defeat the Julu Academy. Today, I, Sima Yuntian, have returned. I will challenge the Julu Academy in front of everyone. I will use my God bestowment strategy to take away your Julu Academy's providence," Sima Yuntian said arrogantly. "I will use my God bestowment strategy to take away your Julu Academy's providence." Hua tilde 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 tilde. Countless cultivators below the stage started discussing. Take away providence. Take away the Julu Academy's providence. Although the Julu Academy was only a mid-tier sect, its status in the East was unshakable. Sima Yuntian wanted the God bestowment strategy. His ambition wasn't just the God bestowment strategy, but also the providence. Roar, roar, roar. Above the Sea of Providence, the three golden dragons of Providence suddenly roared at the God bestowment strategy, as if they felt threatened by the strategy. Literary battle of sages. Take away the providence. Furthermore, he was trying to snatch Julu Academy's providence in front of everyone. They didn't come with good intentions. Not only did they not come with good intentions, but with the God bestowment scroll, it was equivalent to having a sect bestowed upon them by the heavens. Julu Academy was also a sect. At this moment, it was equivalent to a battle between two sects. A battle between sects that accumulated good karma was seen on the market, but a battle between sects that cultivated good karma was unique. There wasn't much providence in the God bestowment strategy, but it was still providence. Was this a battle between two sects? Sima Yuntian stepped forward, his battle intent pressing towards Meng Ziqiu. Fight! Don't fight! Yang Chuan, what do you say? Meng Ziqiu suddenly looked at Yang Chuan. The God bestowment strategy had two owners, Sima Yuntian and Yang Chuan. If the two of them hadn't decided who would win, Yang Chuan still had the right to decide. Sima Yuntian turned to look at Yang Chuan, his eyes filled with battle intent. As long as Yang Chuan didn't agree, Sima Yuntian would definitely attack Yang Chuan. Yang Chuan looked at the providence in the sky, and a faint smile appeared on his face. Fighting for my God bestowment strategy? I wish you victory. Yang Chuan smiled faintly. Sima Yuntian also smiled knowingly. Sima Yuntian placed great importance on Yang Chuan, because until now, Sima Yuntian still hadn't seen through Yang Chuan. This was an extraordinary opponent, and Sima Yuntian placed great importance on him. But today, the most important thing was to wash away the humiliation of the Sima clan. Only by defeating the Julu Academy could the humiliation be washed away. Only then would he be able to comfort the spirits of the Sima clan's ancestors in heaven. Meng Ziqiu, today, does the Julu Academy dare to accept my, Sima Yuntian's, challenge? Sima Yuntian took a step forward and shouted. The 72 disciples also took a step forward, their eyes filled with excitement. The surrounding Confucian cultivators were also very excited. Challenging the Julu Academy? This was something that hadn't happened in many years. Meng Ziqiu narrowed his eyes and looked at Sima Yuntian. The 5 virtuous paragons behind him all had gloomy expressions. Everyone looked at Meng Ziqiu. In the end, you still can't let it go. Meng Ziqiu sighed. Can't let it go. This is unfair to the Sima clan. Why can't the disciples of the Sima clan compete for the position of Academy Master? Today, I will seek justice for this. I will let everyone in the world be a witness and clear the name of the Sima clan. Sima Yuntian shouted. The Sima clan can't be the master of the Julu Academy. This is an ancient rule. If you can't accept it, then come at me. Meng Ziqiu's eyes became serious. Chapter 556. On the stage of the Heaven's Gift Plaza. Sima Yuntian and Meng Ziqiu each sat on one side of a huge chessboard. Everyone else stood below the stage as they placed their pieces. Yu Yi frowned as he looked into the distance where the paragons of the Julu Academy were gathered. Yu Yi, why is the dean so stubborn? Just one match with Sima Yuntian? A virtuous paragon frowned. That traitor Sima Yuntian dares to challenge our Julu Academy. We must teach him a lesson. Yeah, why don't you let us do it? I know the dean is powerful, but what if he loses? Yu Yi might take over Meng Ziqiu's position after the Heaven's Gift Conference, so Meng Ziqiu had told him many secrets. Everyone, calm down. The dean has his own plans. Yu Yi shook his head. I know Sima Yuntian's ability. We might not be able to win, but as long as the dean doesn't interfere, it won't affect the Julu Academy's fortune. But if the dean loses, our academy's fortune will be greatly damaged. A virtuous paragon said worriedly. Yu Yi looked at the sea of fortune above him. 2 of the golden dragons were still weak because of the Heaven's Gift Conference, while the other 3 golden dragons were roaring with the God bestowment strategy. After a moment of silence, Yu Yi shook his head. Everyone, don't worry about it. There are some secrets of the academy that you don't know. It's best for the dean to fight personally. Secrets? What secrets? A group of virtuous paragons frowned. Yu Yi shook his head. If you're willing to give up your freedom and participate in the Julu Academy's administration, you might know. But for now, I'm sorry. The 5 virtuous paragons frowned. Even the virtuous paragons didn't know much about the Julu Academy's secrets. They didn't participate in the administration and could only make suggestions. Seeing Meng Ziqiu fight Sima Yuntian, they could only sigh. Rumble. Half of the ground on the stage suddenly shattered. The rubble slowly floated up and began to revolve around the 2 players. 2 people who were at the pinnacle of the art of chess placed their pieces. Righteous chi emanated from them. The mysteries of the game seemed to have seeped into the surrounding rubble along with the righteous chi. The crushed stones turned into bright luminous pearls that revolved around the two of them in a mysterious pattern. Thousands upon thousands of crushed stones circled around the two of them like meteors. It was as if countless stars were revolving in the starry sky. Countless cultivators in the surroundings used spells as mirrors to look at the chessboard on the arena. Poof! Poof! The Confucian cultivators all felt dizzy, and some even vomited blood. Yifeng, did you see it clearly? Yang Chuan asked in a deep voice. In the end, this subject's vision is still insufficient. I can understand this game of Go, but I need time to understand it. Yifeng sighed. It's very difficult to comprehend it in such a short period of time. It's just like the chess game that His Majesty played with me. Although I worked very hard, my vision as a mortal was limited, and I couldn't see much of it. I had to wait until after the game to slowly comprehend it. I've been constantly broadening my horizons in Julu City for the past 2 years. Now, I'll help you comprehend this game of Go. Close your eyes, Yang Chuan said. Yes. Yifeng nodded. Yang Chuan extended his hand, and countless stars appeared in his palm. The stars revolved around his palm as if he was holding a universe in his hand. If one looked carefully, they would discover that the trajectory of the stars in his palm was exactly the same as the rubble around Sima Yuntian and Meng Ziqiu on the stage. Chapter 557. Clap. Yang Chuan placed his hand behind Yifeng's head. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Yifeng's hair suddenly moved without any wind, as if he was thoroughly experiencing the game on the stage. Yang Chuan looked at the stage and imparted all his understanding and analysis to Yifeng. It was only the dismantling of the chessboard and the understanding of it. Yang Chuan's many years of experience naturally made him much more knowledgeable than Yifeng. Yifeng seemed to be in the middle of the chessboard and quickly understood the game played by Meng Ziqiu and Sima Yuntian. Rumble. On the stage, Sima Yuntian grabbed a piece and placed it down. His eyes burned with fighting spirit as he pressed forward step by step. Meng Ziqiu frowned. He continued to place his pieces. More and more nature energy gathered in the surroundings, and the entire arena was dyed white by the nature energy emitted by the two of them. Among the tens of thousands of Confucian cultivators in the surroundings, nearly 10,000 of them vomited blood and didn't dare to look any longer. This game was the pinnacle of chess. It rained for 6 whole hours, and the sky was already dark. The righteous energy was even more dazzling. Give me justice. Sima Yuntian placed his piece. Clap. Boom. The rubble surrounding the two of them suddenly exploded. They exploded in all directions. A gust of wind blew from the chessboard, and Meng Ziqiu's piece was suspended in the air for a long time. The hands of the virtuous paragons in the distance trembled. It's over, a virtuous paragon muttered. Clap. Meng Ziqiu crushed the piece in his hand. He looked up at the fierce-looking Sima Yuntian and sighed. You win. Boom. In the sky, there was a sudden explosion. Roar. 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 The 3 golden dragons of Providence suddenly let out sorrowful cries. The surging sea of Providence suddenly flowed toward the God Bestowment strategy. The God Bestowment strategy seemed to have a powerful suction force that absorbed the sea of Providence. Roar. The golden dragon of Providence let out a sorrowful cry as its providence flowed away. The surrounding Confucian cultivators all revealed looks of shock. This, the headmaster lost. Impossible. How could our Julu Academy lose? Why? How could the headmaster lose? The great scholars of the Julu Academy all lamented. The 5 paragons were even more sorrowful. This was the first time in 50,000 years that the Julu Academy's providence had been lost. This was the first time it had been snatched by someone. Ha 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 ha, father, grandfather, ancestors, open your eyes and take a look. I've won. I've made the Julu Academy pay the price. Sima Yuntian suddenly looked up to the sky and laughed. As he laughed, 2 streams of tears unconsciously flowed down his face. After so many years of grievances, he could finally get his revenge. Rumble. With this flow, nearly a quarter of the providence flowed into the God sealing strategy. Above the sea of providence, even a golden dragon of providence suddenly lost its consciousness and flowed into the God sealing strategy. Roar. A golden dragon suddenly appeared in the God sealing strategy. Its consciousness was destroyed, but in the God sealing strategy, a new consciousness was born. A golden dragon belonging to the God sealing strategy appeared. The golden dragon circled around the God sealing strategy and roared into the sky. Roar. The entire Julu city was filled with the excited roar of the golden dragon. The flow of providence stopped. Sima Yuntian had won a quarter of the providence in this game of chess. Countless cultivators looked at this scene in shock. Wasn't this battle of providence a little too easy? Sima Yuntian comforted the spirits of his ancestors. Meng Ziqiu slowly retreated. Chapter 558. Meng Ziqiu didn't look disappointed or sad. The 5 virtuous paragons had ugly expressions. Ku Yi only smiled bitterly. Meng Ziqiu and Ku Yi looked at each other and smiled. Sima Yuntian looked at Meng Ziqiu after comforting the spirits of the ancestors. Seeing Meng Ziqiu's calm expression, his previous excitement disappeared. Meng Ziqiu was the dean, so why didn't he feel anything? Congratulations, teacher. Congratulations, teacher, for defeating the Julu Academy. Congratulations, teacher. The 72 scholars all bowed excitedly. The tens of thousands of spectators were still in a daze. The Julu Academy was a sacred ground. How could it lose? How? Mr. Munro stood behind Yang Chuan with a complicated expression. Father lost. How could father lose? On the side, Yang Chuan's hand fell. Yi Feng closed his eyes, as if immersed in some memories. Prince Yang, what's wrong with Mr. Yi? Spider King didn't understand. Nothing, don't disturb him. Yang Chuan smiled. Okay. Spider King nodded. Sima Yuntian received congratulations from everyone, but he didn't see Meng Ziqiu lose his composure. He felt uncomfortable. Looking at the golden dragon roaring in the sky, Sima Yuntian's eyes turned cold as he looked at Yang Chuan. Yang Chuan, come. Sima Yuntian said in a low voice. Sima Yuntian's shout calmed the spectators and they all looked at Yang Chuan. There was still a battle to decide the god bestowment. Spider King. Yang Chuan looked at Spider King. Spider King nodded. He stepped onto the stage. Start with the zither? Okay. Sima Yuntian nodded. Whoosh. Whoosh. The 2 zither experts set up their zithers. Dong 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 dong. Dong dong dong. As soon as Spider King and Sima Yuntian stepped onto the stage, the power of their zithers was maximized. The beautiful zither music sounded like war drums. 8 sound rivers suddenly appeared in front of each of them and collided with each other. Boom. 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 The might of the 8 sound rivers was vast. Under the huge impact, whirlpools suddenly appeared around the 2. Huge sonic booms instantly filled the entire arena. Rumble. This zither battle was many times more powerful than before, and it was incredibly powerful, forcing the countless Confucian cultivators to continuously retreat. Some of them even covered their ears and fled in terror. How is that possible? Their Guqin Dao is too terrifying. I can't take it anymore. Ah. Countless Xiuzhe showed pained expressions. Wang Zhu waved his Guqin faster and faster. Sweat dripped down his face. Sima Yuntian's Guqin Dao was too strong. This was the first time he had encountered someone like this. Sima Yuntian's eyes were also filled with malevolence. His hands were so fast that the shadows of his fingers could no longer be seen. Beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. Pu. The king spider spat out a mouthful of blood. The surrounding sound waves gradually disappeared. The whirlpool on the stage also slowly dissipated. Spider King spat out a mouthful of blood and revealed a bitter smile. You won, Spider King said. Sima Yuntian took a deep breath and said, You're very strong. No matter how strong I am, I still lost. The Julu Academy is indeed full of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. I didn't expect to lose so many times in just a few years, Spider King said with a bitter smile. Spider King got up with difficulty and walked towards Yang Chuan. Prince Yang, I've tried my best. I'm sorry, Spider King said bitterly. You've fulfilled your promise. Rest well. Yang Chuan handed over a pill bottle. No need. The rest is up to you, Spider King said with a bitter smile. Yang Chuan took a deep breath and nodded with a confident smile. Chapter 559. The 39th Wild Sima. It's Mr. Yi again. Even the Hall Master is not as good as Sima Yuntian. Can Mr. Yi do it? The Confucian cultivators below the arena discussed fervently. Yi Feng had already woken up and stepped onto the arena. Sima Yuntian looked at Yi Feng, and a glint flashed in his eyes. The second game is go. Let me make the first move. Yi Feng smiled faintly. Right after Yi Feng spoke, Zhong Shen of the 72 Confucian cultivators suddenly stepped forward. Teacher, Yang Chuan did not even come up. Why do you need to do it yourself? Let this disciple do it for you, Zhong Shen said with a smile. You? Sima Yuntian suddenly smiled. Yes. Teacher, rest assured. Since this disciple dared to step forward, I am confident of victory, Zhong Shen said confidently. The 71 Confucian cultivators nodded. Sima Yuntian smiled faintly and asked, how confident are you of victory? Zhong Shen frowned slightly. He looked around and looked at Yi Feng, as if he was worried that if he said it, it wouldn't work. Countless cultivators in the surroundings also stared at Zhong Shen. It was as if they were anticipating Zhong Shen's secret to victory. Seeing his teacher press him, Zhong Shen could only helplessly say, this disciple discovered a flaw in Yi Feng's Go style. This disciple and his junior brothers studied Yi Feng's Go style. Yi Feng has a fatal flaw. Wow. The cultivators below the arena looked at Zhong Shen in shock. A flaw. Yi Feng has a flaw. Teacher. Zhong Shen stepped forward and said expectantly. Is it the initial setup? Sima Yuntian asked with a smile. Huh? Teacher noticed it as well? Zhong Shen asked in shock. Setup. The surrounding cultivators looked at Sima Yuntian in shock. Sima Yuntian shook his head and sighed. You fell for it. Ah. How can that be? This disciple studied all of Yi Feng's Go games. I can't be wrong. His initial setup was very weak. As long as he made a ferocious breakthrough at the start, he would lose for sure. Zhong Shen said in disbelief. Ha 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 ha, Mr. Yi, why don't you say it? Sima Yuntian suddenly laughed. Although Sima Yuntian was arrogant, as long as it was someone with ability, Sima Yuntian would still give them sufficient respect. Yi Feng smiled and said, Mr. Sima, you have sharp eyes. Ah! What's going on? Teacher, what's going on? Zhong Shen asked in confusion. Sighing softly, Sima Yuntian said, that's a trap that Yi Feng set up long ago, just waiting for you to fall into it. A condom made long ago? Did Yi Feng leave that flaw on purpose? Zhong Shen opened his mouth in shock. Zhong Shen wasn't the only one. Many of the virtuous scholars at the Julu Academy had studied Yi Feng's chessboard, and some of them were smart enough to notice Yi Feng's flaws. They were originally quite pleased with themselves, but now they were told that this was a trap set up by someone else. The paragons immediately blushed. Yi Feng's chess is not something you can compare to. Go down and watch carefully, Sima Yuntian said indifferently. Yes, Zhong Shen said with a red face. At this moment, there were tens of thousands of cultivators watching. His arrogance this time made him the laughingstock of the world. Of course, most of the cultivators in the surroundings worshipped Yi Feng even more. Sima Yuntian looked at Yang Chuan and said, Yang Chuan? Yang Chuan's expression was still very calm as he smiled faintly. Although there are only 4 people, they all have their own specialties. Zither, Go, calligraphy, and painting. You found the best. Amazing. Sima Yuntian looked at Yang Chuan with praise. Sima Yuntian, rumor has it that you are proficient in the zither, Go, calligraphy, and painting. You really live up to your reputation. Yang Chuan smiled. Zither, you have already lost. Do you still think you can beat me? Sima Yuntian said gravely. Chapter 560. I have to thank you for bringing me such luck, Yang Chuan said with a smile. Yang Chuan's words showed his confidence in winning. Ha 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 ha. All right. Come at me together, Sima Yuntian said arrogantly. Together. Surprised voices came from all around. Even Meng Ziqiu, who was not far away, narrowed his eyes. The descendants of the Sima family are indeed arrogant, Yu Yi said with a bitter smile. It's passed down from generation to generation. Meng Ziqiu nodded with a bitter smile. Yang Chuan stared at Sima Yuntian calmly. Mr. Munro, come and have a painting battle with him, Yang Chuan said to Wen Ruo. Huh. All right. Mr. Munro nodded. Aren't you coming? Sima Yuntian asked. Me? I'm afraid you won't be able to handle it and will blame the rules. Yang Chuan smiled. Ha 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 ha. If I can't handle it, will I blame the rules? Sima Yuntian laughed in surprise. Sima Yuntian was arrogant, but now he realized that there was someone even more arrogant than him. All right, I'll give you one last chance. Sima Yuntian nodded. Prince Yang, I'll try my best. Mr. Munro said to Yang Chuan again. Yang Chuan believes in Mr. Munro's ability. But this time, what is Mr. Munro going to draw? Yang Chuan smiled. Prince Yang, please give me a question, Wen Ruo said seriously. Yang Chuan looked at Sima Yuntian and then at Wen Ruo. He smiled and said, I want you to draw a painting of great destruction. Huh? Great destruction? Wen Ruo was shocked. Destruction of all living things, extinction of all races, destruction of all living things, destruction of heaven and earth, doomsday, Yang Chuan said with certainty. Mr. Munro looked at Yang Chuan in shock. His eyes were full of confusion. It wasn't that Wen Ruo didn't know how to draw such a picture, it was just that this drawing was too remote. Moreover, it was very unpopular. Go ahead. Think about it. I trust you. Yang Chuan smiled. All right. Mr. Munro smiled bitterly. Nodding, Mr. Munro also stepped onto the arena. Wen Ruo and Yi Feng stepped onto the stage while Yang Chuan returned to Mo Yushi's side. What do you want Mr. Munro to draw? Can he win? Mo Yushi asked worriedly. Meow. I heard it. Yang Chuan wants Wen Ruo to draw Doomsday. Meow immediately jumped from Mo Yushi's arms to Yang Chuan's shoulder. I don't know whether he can win or not, but as long as he draws according to my instructions, I can help him defeat Sima Yuntian, Yang Chuan said with certainty. Mo Yushi's eyes flashed with curiosity. This heavenly bestowal conference is not that simple. Qing Long, help me do something. Yang Chuan thought for a moment and said. Yes. World of Light. In front of the Divine Light Basilica, Meng Lingtian waved his hand and a light screen appeared. Everything in the Heavenly Bestowal Plaza could be seen. Dongfang Zhengpai, Meng Rongrong, and 3 other men were accompanying Meng Lingtian to watch the light screen. This Sima Yuntian is too much. He actually stole the fate of the Julu Academy, Dongfang Zhengpai shouted. Meng Lingtian sighed as he watched Sima Yuntian take a quarter of the fate of the outside world. Old Meng, no, teacher, aren't you going to do something about it? Your family's little Meng Qi has already lost. Are you just going to let Sima Yuntian take advantage of this fate? Dongfang Zhengpai frowned. He's the only heir of the Sima family in his generation. The Sima family has a very special status. The Julu Academy's ancestral teachings set various rules for the Sima family. They have many privileges in the Julu Academy, but they can never become the dean. Meng Lingtian sighed. Chapter 561. Which ancestor made such a stupid rule? Dongfang Zhengpai said angrily. Dongfang Zhengpai's expression changed as he said bitterly, Teacher, I'm just feeling sorry for the Julu Academy. I didn't mean to offend that ancestor. Please don't punish me by making me copy books. However, Meng Lingtian didn't blame him this time. Instead, he looked at Dongfang Zhengpai strangely and said, It was your ancestor, Dongfang Bubai, who made the rule. Fat. Immediately, the other students laughed. What are you laughing at? My ancestor is wise and powerful. Is he someone you can laugh at? I was praising him. Do you understand? Dongfang Zhengpai shouted. Everyone laughed even harder. Dongfang Zhengpai could only watch the Heavenly Bestowment Conference speechlessly. Meng Rongrong kept looking at Yang Chuan on the screen. She bit her lip with a complicated look in her eyes. The heavenly bestowment square. There were 2 easels on the stage, each with a long piece of white paper. Mr. Munro was looking at one of the pieces of paper and holding a brush in his hand. He seemed to be thinking about how to proceed. On the other side, Sima Yuntian and Yi Feng's game had officially begun. Smack, smack, smack. The 2 of them placed their pieces quickly. Sima Yuntian looked at the chessboard with a serious expression. You can understand my layout just by looking at one of my games? Sima Yuntian raised his eyebrows. Yi Feng didn't say anything and continued to place his pieces. Yi Feng's mana was limited, so he didn't inject any mana into the chessboard. Only a whirlwind appeared above his head. Sima Yuntian seemed to want to play against Yi Feng. He didn't inject any mana into the chessboard either. He just placed his pieces normally. In the distance, the Confucians of Julu Academy all widened their eyes because this game of Go was perhaps more profound than any Go game they had ever seen before. Pa. The pieces continued to be placed. Mr. Munro also started to match the colors. Paintings had a lot of colors. Only when they were colorful would they be dazzling. But this time, Mr. Wenruo only used black ink. At the same time, he placed a lot of water trays and dripped different amounts of black ink into them, forming a palette of different degrees of black. They were all black, but the shades were different. Bang! Mr. Munro was the first to pick up his brush. A black and white painting? Haha, with just one color, you want to create an unparalleled masterpiece. Wenruo, your growth really surprises me. Sima Yuntian's eyes flashed with a golden light. While playing chess with Yi Feng, he also watched Mr. Wenruo splash ink. Yi Feng's chess moves were extremely upright. Sima Yuntian and Yi Feng had played for close to 2 hours before the quick chess ended. The speed at which the 2 placed their chess pieces began to slow down. Gradually, they started Mr. Munro. When the piece was placed, Sima Yuntian looked at Yi Feng in surprise. Yi, where are you from? The art of chess is so amazing. You're even better than the virtuous sages of the academies. May I ask where you learned from? Mr. Munro asked seriously. Yi Feng smiled and said, I'm just a commoner from the countryside. I don't have a teacher. At most, I learned a little from my king. A commoner. You don't have a teacher. Did you learn something from your king? Who's your king? Mr. Munro frowned. Mr. Munro, aren't you asking the obvious? Yi Feng placed his piece. Yang Chuan? Mr. Munro frowned and looked at Yang Chuan. Chapter 562. Sima Yuntian and Yi Feng were playing chess. The 2 of them fell into deep thought. Sima Yuntian held onto the chess piece, unable to place it down for a long time. His eyes were filled with solemnity. Yi Feng also looked at the chessboard with a grave expression. For a time, no one could do anything to the other. Suddenly, a sorrowful aura surged from behind. Hua! Waves of exclamations sounded out from below the arena. Sima Yuntian and Yi Feng's chessboard was too abstruse. It was so abstruse that many people were flustered when they saw it. Most of them turned their attention to Mr. Munro's painting. He had long heard that Meng Wanruo's painting Dao was world-shocking. Now that he saw it today, it was indeed world-shocking. It was a black and white ink painting, a scene of heaven and earth that had experienced the vicissitudes of life. The earth cracked, and countless volcanoes shot up into the sky. Mountains and rivers shattered, and rivers flowed in reverse. Countless living beings were fleeing in all directions. The scene of fear and despair caused one to feel a sense of sadness for no reason. Mr. Munro's paintings were very lively. They were so lively that when one looked at the characters in the paintings, it was as if they were looking at themselves running away. Mr. Munro was no longer using a pen. Instead, he picked up a bowl of ink and splashed it on the painting. Bam! 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 As soon as the ink entered the painting, it began to take shape, revealing numerous pitch-black devil ghosts running about in the ancient world. Ga 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 ga. Jia 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 jia. Suddenly, a burst of evil laughter came from the painting. Help! Oh my God! God, save me! Mother! My son! Voices of despair gushed out from the scroll. Countless Shouja who heard the shrill screams felt their hair stand on end. In the painting, the devil was tearing apart thousands of living beings and devouring them excitedly. The sky was falling, the earth was collapsing. In fact, in the image, the sun was shattered and the moon was shattered. Devils appeared everywhere in the world, in every place that could be seen. It was a 30-foot-tall painting, and it was filled with endless suffering. Mr. Munro waved his pen in the end. Boom. In the scene, a large amount of black fog suddenly gushed out, and within the black fog, a dynamic disaster scene appeared. Just like Splendid Meowan not long ago, this painting could also display a dynamic atmosphere. Ahahahaha. Demons roared and swallowed living beings alive. Living beings moved, and Shouja could take their place. Cake. Some of the more timid Shouja shuddered when they saw the scene. It was so beautiful that it penetrated deep into her bones. However, this was still nothing. Suddenly, the life forms and demons in the black chi seemed to see the cultivators below the arena. Confucian cultivator? Scholars, save me, save my son. A voice suddenly sounded from the screen. Below the arena, countless Shouja suddenly shuddered. Caw, there are still 70,000 people over there. 70,000 flesh and blood. Caw, kill them all. The devils seemed to have also seen the people on the screen and were about to pounce. It was as if the two worlds could see each other through a thin membrane. Help! Save me! Save my grandson! The life forms inside kept calling for help, and the demons roared and wanted to rush out. However, the two worlds were separated by a thin membrane, and they couldn't come out. It was incomparably mournful and tragic. On the square, there seemed to be a cold wind blowing. Mr. Munro's painting was finally revealed in front of everyone. Chapter 563. How is that possible? Is that real? They can see us? Mo-yu, she said in surprise. Spirit creation? No wonder Mr. Wenruo wasn't willing to paint. It turned out that his paintings had already reached such a level. The characters in his paintings were endowed with simple spirituality. Creating spirituality? Yang Chuan exclaimed as he looked at Mr. Wenruo. The great sorrow swept through the entire square. The great calamity infected all the Shouja. All of them looked at Mr. Wenruo's painting with shock and sorrow. Some people even started to cry. Looking at the calamity of the people in the painting, they couldn't control themselves. Sima Yuntian looked at it in surprise. Spirit creation? Wenruo, you've really opened my eyes. You've reached such a level in just a few hundred years. Wenruo put down her brush. Tears fell from her eyes. She was obviously affected by her painting. Below, Meng Ziqiu looked on silently. Headmaster, your son is really amazing. I'm not as good as him in painting. Spirit creation? No one in the Julu Academy has been able to do that for many generations, a virtuous sage exclaimed. Meng Ziqiu frowned and looked at the stage. On the stage, Sima Yuntian looked at the chessboard. Mr. Yi, you can't do anything to me in this game, and I can't do anything to you. If this continues, it will only drag on. Why don't we draw? Sima Yuntian said solemnly. Yi Feng looked at the chessboard and then at Sima Yuntian. He finally nodded and said, okay. This game of chess had indeed reached a stalemate. Of course, Yi Feng had done it on purpose. Yi Feng knew that he had too little contact with the cultivation world and had seen too little of the world. If he wanted to completely defeat Sima Yuntian, it was almost impossible. Hence, he had used a fatal move. He delayed Sima Yuntian, and it was a draw. A draw. Countless Shouja in the surroundings looked surprised. However, looking at the chessboard on the stage, everyone nodded. The strength of the two was not something they could evaluate. Yi Feng walked back to Yang Chuan. King, it's a draw. Yi Feng smiled bitterly. Well done. Your field of vision is too narrow. Even so, you were still able to draw. In the future, no matter how wide your field of vision is, Sima Yuntian will definitely not be your opponent. Yang Chuan nodded. Yes. Yi Feng nodded, his eyes filled with confidence. This was Yi Feng's domain. He never thought that he would lose to anyone. Sima Yuntian, in the future, he would definitely defeat him. The game ended in a draw. Sima Yuntian looked at Mr. Munro's painting. Great sorrow engulfed the entire plaza. Everyone's hearts seemed to have been infected by this painting. Even after the chess game ended, there was not much discussion in the surroundings. Everyone was immersed in that sorrowful and despairing atmosphere. Sima Yuntian didn't say much and walked towards his easel. He grabbed a basin of ink and splashed it on the painting. Boom! Suddenly, a large patch of darkness appeared on the painter. Sima Yuntian's brush danced in the air as if he had already thought of something. He continued to paint at a rapid speed. Rumble. From Sima Yuntian's painting, a series of muffled sounds could be heard. To be able to teach a genius like Wen Ruo, his painting skills were naturally shocking. Everyone watched quietly. 1 incense stick of time, 2 incense sticks of time, 3 incense sticks of time, 2 hours. Finally, Sima Yuntian's painting was revealed. A patch of black clouds covered the sky. Within the black clouds, lightning flashed. The lightning gathered into numerous lightning-shaped divine dragons that shuttled back and forth within the black clouds. Boom! 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 A series of loud noises came from the painting, like the sound of heavenly thunder, striking the hearts of everyone, causing their minds to tremble, and they quickly recovered from their sorrowful state of mind. Go! Sima Yuntian finished his last stroke. Chapter 564. Boom! In the painting, black smoke rose to the sky. The black smoke rose to the sky and turned into clouds of tribulation. The clouds of tribulation were huge, and countless lightning bolts were rolling in the clouds. Rumble. It was as if the heavens were pressing down on everyone's heart. My tribulation, ah, my tribulation, someone screamed. No, it's not yours, it's mine. Did this painting draw out my tribulation? Impossible, I'm only at the 4th level of the Qi realm, how can I feel the tribulation? Sounds of shock came from all around. Lightning was about to strike. Vast heavenly might. This painting brought out the heavenly might and suppressed countless cultivators, causing them to lose their judgment. The scene in the painting also seemed like it was about to come out of the painting. Although there were no humans or demons in the painting, the feeling was the same. It almost broke through the layer of film and entered the real world. Another painting that creates spirits. Mo Yuxi's expression changed. Meng Ziqiu's group of virtuous paragons were silent. They all smiled bitterly. When Ruo looked at her own painting and then at Sima Yuntian's painting, she sighed and said, "Teachers' paintings are always so powerful. Using the tribulation to counter my doomsday, I'm impressed." Sima Yuntian shook his head and looked deeply at Wen Ruo. The heavenly tribulation didn't destroy the doomsday, it's just equal. No one has completely suppressed the other. My tribulation cloud didn't disappear and your doomsday wasn't pushed back into the painting. Let's consider it a draw. Wen Ruo looked at Sima Yuntian and smiled. Okay. Another draw? Mo Yuxi frowned. Yang Chuan nodded and said, a painting battle is like a battle of power. If one side wins, the other side's illusions will be severely suppressed. Right now, no one can do anything to the other. It can only be a draw. But, Mo Yuxi frowned. Yang Chuan shook his head. He wasn't worried. On the stage. In just a few hundred years, your painting has already caught up to mine. In terms of painting, you are more talented than me. I already know that you've been expelled from the Julu Academy. I can only feel sorry for you. There's nothing I can do. Sima Yuntian took a deep breath and said, "Thank you, teacher." Mr. Munro smiled. With that, Mr. Munro walked down the arena. Prince Yang, this is all I can do. Wen Ruo smiled bitterly. That's enough. Yang Chuan said confidently. As he spoke, Yang Chuan stepped onto the arena by himself. As he walked up step by step, everyone around him looked at him with excited gazes. Yang Chuan had gathered Spider King, Wen Ruo, and Yi Feng. They had all displayed world-shocking power of Wen Dao. As their leader, what would he do? Yang Chuan was the main character of the competition for the investiture of the gods. In the arena, Yang Chuan looked at Sima Yuntian with confidence. Sima Yuntian, 1 win, 2 draws. Yang Chuan, 1 loss, 2 draws. Sima Yuntian calmed himself down and looked at Yang Chuan with a frown. You've already lost 1 round and tied 2 rounds. What's the point of the last round? Sima Yuntian said in a low voice. There's still books left. We don't know who will have the last laugh. Yang Chuan smiled. Books? Haha, I, Sima Yuntian, am proficient in zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. But the truth is that I'm only proficient in books. I'll win. Yang Chuan smiled. Chen Ping, one of Sima Yuntian's disciples, suddenly shouted. What a joke. Yang Chuan, are you crazy? 4 rounds of zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. You have no chance of winning at all. There is only 1 round left. How can you win? You can't win, Chen Ping shouted. Chen Ping voiced out everyone's thoughts. That's right, the outcome had already been decided. How could Yang Chuan say such words? There's only 1 round left. Even if you win, it'll only be a draw. Yang Chuan looked at Chen Ping and smiled. Sima Yuntian raised an eyebrow and looked at his youngest disciple. Do you have the right to speak here? Chapter 565. Sima Yuntian raised an eyebrow at his youngest disciple. Do you have the right to speak here? Chen Ping's face stiffened. Please forgive me for my rudeness, teacher. Letting Yi Feng play chess for him, letting Spider King play the zither for him, and letting Wen Ruo paint for him was enough for Sima Yuntian to take Yang Chuan seriously. To be arrogant, one must have the right to be arrogant. Although no one had seen any of Yang Chuan's works since the beginning of the Heavens Bestowment Conference, the previous battles had already highlighted Yang Chuan's ability. To be able to make friends with Emperor, Yi Feng, Spider King, and Wen Ruo, how could such a person not be a dragon among men? How will you beat me? Sima Yuntian looked at Yang Chuan curiously. Do you really think that no one can surpass you? Yang Chuan smiled. Zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting are all books. I've traveled the world for many years and have never met a worthy opponent. The books that my inferior disciples used that day were all written in my spare time and can no longer represent me. You, on the other hand, have 100 poems. They are indeed exquisite, but it seems that they are not enough. Sima Yuntian said in a low voice. Those poems naturally can't represent my level. Yang Chuan smiled. Oh, empty words are useless. Let's see what you can do. Yang Chuan smiled. All right. Sima Yuntian nodded. With a wave of his hand, 2 large tables appeared on the stage, each covered with a piece of paper. The books have been spread out. Please. Sima Yuntian said in a low voice. Please. Yang Chuan nodded. Sima Yuntian did not stand on ceremony. Books were Sima Yuntian's pride. He had never been modest, and he would not be at this moment. He picked up the brush and began to write. Rumble. Sima Yuntian's brush was filled with righteousness. Before the words appeared, an extraordinary aura was born. Million Immortals Pilgrimage GIF. As soon as the title was written, Sima Yuntian's pen moved like flowing water. The brush and ink splashed out, revealing a great essay. The overwhelming righteous energy enveloped Sima Yuntian, making him seem like a resplendent star, incomparably dazzling. Boom! Around Sima Yuntian, boundless righteous energy spread out in all directions. Wherever the brush landed, it was like the source of a river. Boundless righteous energy rushed out, rushing towards half of the square. Why was it only one side? That was because Sima Yuntian wanted to be fair. He purposely controlled his side so that he wouldn't disturb Yang Chuan on the other side. As a top-notch writer, Sima Yuntian had his own pride. Naturally, he disdained to use such underhanded methods. Yang Chuan smiled as he watched Sima Yuntian splashing ink. A trace of regret flashed in Xiao Chen's eyes as he muttered to himself, with such talent, it's a pity that he's immersed in these insignificant poems. He took out a jade box from his bosom and took out his brush. Dream immortal. Dream immortal. In the past, Xiao Chen and Mo Yu she saw a nightmare in their dreams. They refined the nightmare into this brush. Looking at the Xian paper on the table, Yang Chuan ignored it. Instead, he slowly walked towards Mr. Munro's previous painting. It was the painting of misery and suffering. Because of the heavenly tribulation, the great sorrowful aura of the painting of misery and suffering was slowly offset. Yang Chuan took a deep breath. Holding the dream Immortal, he dipped it in ink and suddenly picked up the words on Mr. Munro's painting. He did not leave any blank space. Instead, he directly covered the entire page. Bitter, 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 the heavenly Tao collapses, all living beings perish, all living beings suffer, the heavenly Tao dies. Chapter 566. As soon as the first 9 words came out, all the spirits in the painting cried even louder. Yang Chuan put down his brush, and golden light suddenly shot out in all directions. It was like an eruption of righteousness, but in reality, it was fate that surrounded it. In the blink of an eye, Yang Chuan and the painting were enveloped by the surging luck. Yang Chuan could not see what was going on inside. He only knew that Yang Chuan was within the range of the luck. He was constantly writing a beautiful poem, and it was a poem that matched Mr. Wen Ruo's painting. He's actually writing a poem on Wen Ruo's painting? What is Prince Yang doing? Spider King frowned. This is the first time I've seen His Majesty's poem. Yi Feng exclaimed. What? First time? Isn't that the poem from the Peak Literary Gathering? Mo Yu she asked curiously. That was written by His Majesty, but His Majesty said that he didn't create it. Yi Feng took a deep breath. If it wasn't created by Yang Chuan, then it must have been written by someone else. He just wrote it down from memory? But those hundreds of beautiful poems have never appeared in the world before. Who wrote it? Mo Yu she was puzzled. I don't know. Yi Feng shook his head. What's wrong, Mr. Munro? Prince Yang is a great talent. I'm not as good as him. Mr. Munro laughed bitterly. Oh. The heavens are bitter, the earth is bitter, the sun and the moon are bitter, the people are bitter, the races are bitter, the heavens are bitter, humanity is bitter, the world is bitter, and the people are bitter. I thought that painting was perfect because I had successfully created the spirits. However, when Prince Yang wrote the 9 bitter words, I realized that the painting still lacked a true soul. Prince Yang is writing a masterpiece, Mr. Munro said in surprise. A masterpiece? Spider King said in a low voice. Mr. Munro didn't want to explain, but there was a bitter look on his face. Mo Yu she frowned and looked at Mr. Munro. Mr. Munro, why do I feel that you don't want Yang Chuan to win? Besides Mo Yu she, Yi Feng also looked at Mr. Munro in confusion. Looking at the fighting ring, Mr. Munro smiled bitterly and said, Don't worry, Saintess. I did my best just now. Although I don't want Yang Chuan to win, I didn't slack off at all. Oh. Why? Mo Yu she asked curiously. Mr. Munro shook his head. Saint, you don't have to ask. Although Prince Yang is powerful, Sima Yuntian is also powerful. Mr. Munro refused to say anything, so everyone could only sigh. Everyone looked towards the arena. Sima Yuntian didn't care about the fate surrounding Yang Chuan. Instead, he focused on writing his Pilgrimage of 1,000 Immortals. Pilgrimage of 1,000 Immortals. At this moment, around Sima Yuntian, there seemed to be illusory figures of immortals condensed by righteous qi. Each of the immortals had an ethereal qi. Suddenly, countless immortal herbs sprouted from the ground. As soon as the immortal herbs appeared, they covered the entire Heaven's Gift Square. Someone went to touch them and found that the immortal herbs were just illusory figures. However, the illusory figures were already very powerful. In the blink of an eye, the Heaven's Gift Square disappeared and turned into a huge fairyland. Countless cultivators stood in the fairyland. The clouds were ethereal, and the immortals were flying around. It was like a dream. It was as if everyone had appeared in another world. Before he finished writing, everyone could feel the soaring literary aura. Everyone looked at Sima Yuntian, their eyes full of anticipation. The immortals looked around as if they could see countless cultivators. They nodded at the cultivators in the square and smiled kindly. Chapter 567. He smiled at me. That immortal smiled at me. Creation spirit. The fake characters in the words also have spirituality. Too formidable. This beautiful and profound writing has already exceeded the scope of my knowledge. Countless voices of worship came from all around. Julu Academy. A group of Confucians and virtuous paragons could only look at each other and smile bitterly. This style of writing was too strong. After the 10,000 immortals greeted the surrounding cultivators, they all faced the 100 Saints' righteousness altar. Because of the illusion, everyone felt like they were in an immortal realm. Everything seemed to have disappeared. From afar, they could see the 100 saint statues surrounding Goddess Ji Chen. The saint statues were constantly emitting righteous energy. At this moment, Sima Yuntian's writing was coming to an end. The 10,000 immortals faced the 100 saints. Whoosh! Sima Yuntian was filled with excitement and insolence. He raised his brush and made the final stroke. With a stroke of the brush, even the brush was thrown out. Bow! Sima Yuntian shouted. Bow to the saints! The 10,000 immortals bowed respectfully to the 100 saints at the same time. Rumble! This bow seemed to cause the surrounding cultivators to bow with sincerity. Bow to the saints! 1,000 immortals pilgrimage bestowment. Once the essay was written, the 10,000 immortals bowed together. Rumble! The 100 saints' righteousness altar and the 100 saint statues trembled at the same time. They moved. The 100 saint statues actually moved. Literature moved the 100 saints. Sima Yuntian's essay alarmed the 100 saint. Someone suddenly exclaimed. Rumble! The 100 saints trembled and suddenly burst out with endless white light. Boundless righteous energy suddenly gushed out and soared into the sky. The Heaven's Gift Square was shining brightly because of the 1,000 immortals' pilgrimage bestowment. However, it was the middle of the night and the sky was still dark. The righteous energy rushed to the sky and rushed to the 9 heavens. In an instant, the white light was extremely dazzling. The 100 saint statues suddenly exploded with righteous energy and became 100 times or even 10,000 times bigger than before. In the blink of an eye, the entire Julu city was as bright as day. Countless cultivators in Julu city were startled and went out one by one. Not only was Julu city bright, even the sky and earth were bright. It was as if the sky had turned bright in an instant. Countless cultivators rushed towards the Heaven's Gift Plaza in surprise. Literature moves 100 sages. Vast heaven and earth. 1,000 immortals pilgrimage. Hua Tilda. On the Heaven's Gift Square, countless cultivators were shocked. This included all the Grand Confucians and virtuous paragons of the Julu Academy. The virtuous paragons who were originally angry at Sima Yuntian were all amazed at this moment. Sima Yuntian, your essays are unrivaled. Yu Yi exclaimed. Rumble! The statue of the 100 saints trembled as if it was inexplicably excited by the passage. Meng Ziqiu revealed a trace of a bitter smile and said, Sima Yuntian? In his generation, the Sima clan has reached the peak. With such a character, who in the world can suppress him? Long live teacher! Long live teacher! The 72 Confucian scholars shouted excitedly. Sima Yuntian let out a long breath and revealed a trace of satisfaction. At the same time, he looked in the direction of Yang Chuan with a trace of excitement of victory. The 100 saints moved together. I made the dead statue go crazy for my words. What can you, Yang Chuan, do? The world mourns. Yang Chuan suddenly sighed in the surging providence. Bang! The providence suddenly dissipated. Chapter 568. Yang Chuan's poetic prowess was also exposed. An aura of great tragedy suddenly surged out. Like a vast storm, the atmosphere of great tragedy and sorrow swept across the entire Myriad Immortals Pilgrimage Conference in an instant. Although the Immortals did not disappear, countless demons appeared around them. Mr. Munro's painting also seemed to appear around everyone. Help! Heavens, save my son! Mother, save me! Heaven and earth collapsed, and great suffering appeared around everyone in an instant. The originally pious mood of the pilgrimage was suddenly forgiven by the tragic disaster in front of them. For a moment, countless cultivators were at a loss and sorrow. Piety, sorrow, these two emotions collided together. Yang Chuan's poem appeared. Bitter, bitter, bitter. 9 bitter words in a row tugged at the hearts of countless people. The sages of the Julu Academy suddenly looked at Yang Chuan's poem together, and suddenly, they were all shocked. Disasters appeared around them, and they were on par with the power of the 10,000 immortals. This is an essay comparable to the Pilgrimage Conference. It's a world-shocking essay, and we can't judge it anymore, Yu Yi said with a bitter smile. Yes, these two essays are beyond our knowledge. We can't judge. Whose is better? It's hard to say who is better, Meng Ziqiu said with a bitter smile. Bitter, bitter, bitter. 9 bitter words appeared in a row, and Sima Yuntian's face darkened. He knew how powerful Yang Chuan was. The aura of great sorrow hit them in the face, and Mr. Munro's painting seemed to have come to life. The heavens are suffering, the earth is suffering, the sun and moon are suffering, the common people are suffering, the myriad races are suffering, the heavenly Tao is suffering, humanity is suffering, the world is suffering, and the human heart is suffering. Once the 9 bitter words appeared, the disasters in the original painting were vividly expressed. Great sorrow, great suffering, great disaster, and great calamity. Just as everyone was reading Yang Chuan's masterpiece, no one noticed the statue of Goddess Jichen behind them. The statue of Goddess Jichen, which was twice as tall as the 100 saints, suddenly had 2 drops of tears in its eyes that bemoaned the state of the universe and pitied the fate of mankind. 2 drops of tears slowly formed on the statue of the goddess who bemoaned the state of the universe and pitied the fate of mankind. The goddess statue was crying. It was as if she had seen the calamity of the world, the destruction of the world, the collapse of the heavens and the earth. The statue of the goddess shed tears of compassion for the common people of the world. Tears fell from Ji Chen's eyes. The 100 saints, who were trembling with excitement, suddenly stopped trembling. The goddess wept sorrowfully, but the 100 saints remained motionless. The vast righteous energy that soared into the sky was instantly withdrawn. The bright sky immediately turned dark again. Night returned to Julu City. The overwhelming righteousness retreated back into the 100 saint statue, as if the 100 saint statue could not use the overwhelming righteousness at all. The 100 saints felt ashamed because of Goddess Ji Chen's tears. They were all crying and repenting for Goddess Ji Chen. All of a sudden, the 100 saints retracted all of their righteousness, causing everyone to turn around. She's crying. Goddess Ji Chen is crying. Someone cried out first. Goddess Ji Chen cried when she saw the suffering of the people. Why would a statue cry? Why are you crying? Almost everyone was stunned by Goddess Ji Chen's tears. Sima Yuntian also turned his head and saw the 2 drops of tears falling from the sky. Those 2 teardrops dripped down, as if they were saying something, as if they were pitying something. Those 2 teardrops pushed Yang Chuan's 9 hardships to the peak. These were 2 drops of tears of sorrow. In front of Goddess Ji Chen's 2 drops of tears, the pilgrimage of 10,000 immortals was so laughable that the 100 saints retracted all of their righteousness in shame. Chapter 569. Goddess Ji Chen, the 2 tears of the stone statue. Ding dong, ding dong. The 2 tears of the stone statue fell to the ground. It was as if the sound of the 2 tears was the only thing that could be heard in the entire plaza. The 100 sages were silent in shame, while the tens of thousands of cultivators were shocked. Meng Ziqiu and the other scholars all bowed respectfully to Goddess Ji Chen. Mo Yuxi, Wen Ruo, Spider King, Yi Feng, and the others all looked at the scene with their mouths wide open. The stone statue shed tears. The stone statue could actually shed tears. Could even the stone statues feel that great sorrow? On the stage, Sima Yuntian also looked at the 2 tears falling to the ground. Seeing Goddess Ji Chen's tears, Sima Yuntian revealed a bitter smile. Just 2 drops of tears had already told him everything. Turning his head, he stared at the painting in front of him. With the 9 words suffering, the painting was already perfect. The people were in a terrible situation. What a terrible scene. Who? In the sky, the tribulation cloud formed by Sima Yuntian's painting was suddenly suppressed by a powerful aura and retracted back into the painting. Painting. The situation suddenly changed. The painting battle that was originally a draw had a winner. Sima Yuntian's painting had strangely lost. As for the book, there was no need to talk about it. Although Sima Yuntian's book wasn't inferior to Yang Chuan's, the scene in front of them, the 2 tears of Goddess Ji Chen and the shame of the 100 sages had already told them everything. Goddess Ji Chen, the creator of all living things, the mother of all living things, was affected by Yang Chuan's 9 suffering. Even the stone statue can shed tears. This painting is too sad. The 100 sages are ashamed. The goddess shed tears. The eyes of the cultivators gradually became clear. Yang Chuan and Sima Yuntian's paintings had surpassed the limit of everyone's recognition. However, it was easy to deal with because everyone could see who was better at this moment. Yang Chuan. Yang Chuan's 9 suffering sorrow. This was a huge reversal. Not only was his essay better than Sima Yuntian's, but he also brought Mr. Munro's painting to a higher level. Victory. Yang Chuan won. Yang Chuan, 2 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw. Sima Yuntian, 2 defeats, 1 win, 1 draw. Standing on the stage, Yang Chuan looked at Goddess Ji Chen in a daze. I don't know what the Great Ancient Calamity is, but I can feel the calamity of the Great Ancient Calamity. Goddess, I don't know how you turned the tide back then, but I'm a part of this world. If I'm strong, I won't let history repeat itself. If I'm strong, I'll protect our world. That's right, I'm the Great Ancient Calamity, Yi Futian said. Yang Chuan sighed as he looked at the statue of the goddess. Boom! The sky suddenly exploded and the god-sealing tome shook violently. The golden light that enveloped Sima Yuntian was instantly absorbed into the god-sealing tome and gathered towards Yang Chuan. There was no need for others to judge. The god-sealing tome had already decided the final winner. Yang Chuan's 9 suffering sorrow could feel the world. Victory was well deserved. Sima Yuntian looked at the golden light that surrounded him disappearing. He reached out to grab it, but the golden light did not return. Sima Yuntian showed a hint of bitterness. Then, Sima Yuntian looked at Yang Chuan again. There was no jealousy, only a desire to fight. A desire to fight that refused to admit defeat. In the world of light, Meng Lingtian and his 5 disciples quietly watched the Heavenly Bestowment Convention on the screen. Chapter 570. What a powerful Sima Yuntian. Meng Lingtian frowned. Powerful my ass. Wasn't he defeated by Yang Chuan in the end? The goddess actually shed tears because of this. Dongfang Zhengpai shouted excitedly. Meng Lingtian did not blame Dongfang Zhengpai for his rudeness. At this moment, Meng Lingtian was also shocked by the 2 top-notch articles. It's been a long time since an article of this level appeared. The sorrowful goddess. Amazing. Meng Lingtian exclaimed. Yeah, it's too amazing. The 3 disciples behind him nodded. It's a pity that these 2 aren't from the Julu Academy. Meng Lingtian smiled bitterly. Meng Rongrong looked at Yang Chuan on the screen. After Yang Chuan finished writing, he kept looking at Goddess Ji Chen. His eyes were filled with pity. That expression made Meng Rongrong's heart flutter. Biting her lips, Meng Rongrong's expression softened. Heaven's Gift Plaza, on the stage. While tens of thousands of cultivators were exclaiming, Yang Chuan looked at Goddess Ji Chen and sighed. Then, Yang Chuan looked at Sima Yuntian. Although the 72 disciples were filled with sorrow, Sima Yuntian revealed a carefree smile. He didn't seem to care about losing the right to enter the God Bestowment Scroll. The taste of defeat, ha ha ha, it's been a long time since I've experienced it. Sima Yuntian said. I'm Yang Chuan. I live in the East Sea. If Mr. Sima has time, you can come to my place anytime. The worry-free city of the East will know any news about me, Yang Chuan said solemnly. Sima Yuntian looked at Yang Chuan and nodded. Mr. Yang, I will remember you. I admit defeat in this battle, but I will still look for you. When my style of writing becomes better, I will definitely look for you. The Yang family's door is open for you. Yang Chuan cupped his hands towards Sima Yuntian. Sima Yuntian smiled and cupped his hands as well. Ha 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 ha. Waving his sleeves, Sima Yuntian stepped off the stage. Teacher, we lost. Teacher, what should we do? The 72 disciples stepped forward one after another, each of their faces filled with grief. Defeated. Their teacher had never tasted defeat in so many years, yet he was defeated today. The determination in their hearts crumbled, and everyone revealed sorrowful expressions. Ha 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 ha, it's nothing. I lost this time, I'll win it back next time. Let's go. Sima Yuntian said in a carefree manner. Yes. All the disciples nodded. Following behind Sima Yuntian, everyone slowly left the Heaven's Gift Plaza. In this battle, Yang Chuan became the biggest winner. Tens of thousands of Xiuzhi sent Sima Yuntian off with their eyes. No one urged him to stay, and no one stopped him. They just watched as Sima Yuntian slowly left. As the sun rose from the east, Sima Yuntian led his disciples and left. A virtuous paragon and 72 disciples with a flourishing literary style walked towards the morning sun, leaving behind their long shadows. Rumble. In the sky, the god's bestowment strategy slowly shrank into a foot-long scroll and slowly fell into Yang Chuan's palm. On the god's bestowment strategy, a golden dragon revolved around it and gradually flew into the god's bestowment strategy. Roar. The golden dragon roared joyfully. Yang Chuan's god's bestowment strategy was different from the previous ones. It contained a quarter of the luck obtained from the Julu Academy. Mo Yuxi, Yi Feng, and the others revealed excited smiles. Spider King frowned and fell into deep thought. Mr. Munro, on the other hand, revealed a trace of bitterness. The god's bestowment strategy was getting closer and closer to Yang Chuan. Chapter 571. Stop. You can't have the investiture of the gods. Suddenly, a loud shout came from the Heaven's Gift Square. Everyone's expression changed. Who was it? Who dared to disturb the Heaven's Gift Conference at this time? Whoosh. Guu Holy Sun brought Chang San and the others to the Heaven's Gift Square again. Guu, what are you doing? Mo Yuxi glared at him. The righteous qi in the Wen duel was too strong and the innumerable Immortal's pilgrimage bestowment formed a new world. Therefore, the people outside could not see what was going on. Guu Holy Sun did not see what was going on inside, but when he saw Sima Yuntian leave, he knew that the outcome had been decided and immediately flew over. Yang Chuan, you can't have the investiture of the gods. Guu Holy Sun said coldly. Standing alone in the arena, Yang Chuan looked at Guu Holy Sun and smiled faintly. How dare a loser like you speak so arrogantly? What did you say? Guu Holy Sun shouted. Go back to where you came from. The investiture of the gods is mine. No one can interfere. Yang Chuan glared at him. A cold aura rushed towards the ancient moon Saint Child. The ancient moon Saint Child's face changed. It was fine that he was slapped in the face by the emperor, but now this brat Yang Chuan also wants to slap my face? Just as Guu Holy Sun was about to get angry, a loud sound suddenly came from the void. How arrogant! Boom! These 5 words were like heavenly thunder, exploding in everyone's hearts. Almost everyone's mind was shaken. Meng Ziqiu, Yu Yi, and the others' faces darkened and they all looked dignified. Yang Chuan narrowed his eyes. Buzz! In the distance, the sun suddenly shone a vast golden light beam. A powerful aura gushed out from the golden light beam. As soon as the aura was released, a huge pressure came and pressed down on the entire square. A powerful aura surged violently. Yi Feng looked like he couldn't take it anymore. Mo Yuxi waved her hand and stood in front of Yi Feng. Yang Chuan stood quietly on the stage, his eyes cold and gloomy. On the other side, Meng Ziqiu stepped forward with a frown. A man in a golden daoist robe suddenly appeared in the golden pillar of light. The man floated in the air and emitted a domineering aura. Welcome back, Father, Guu Holy Sun said excitedly. Within the golden pillar of light, Mohina Jin had descended. The pinnacle of the world, Mohina Jin, greetings, Mohina Jin. Countless cultivators bowed respectfully. Yang Chuan didn't bow. Instead, he looked on coldly and continued to reach for the god investiture scroll. Bastard, how dare you act so impudently in front of this Daoist lord? Mohina Jin suddenly shouted. Mo Yushi's expression changed. Mo Yushi could tell that Mohina Jin was targeting Yang Chuan. Mo Yushi panicked and was about to step forward. But Meng Ziqiu was the first to speak. Mohina Jin, do you want to break the 50,000-year rule and start disrupting the Heavenly Bestowal Conference? Meng Ziqiu's eyes darkened. Meng Ziqiu's cultivation wasn't as high as Mohina Jin's, but the Julu Academy had its own resources and its own extraordinary abilities. Naturally, they couldn't submit to Mohina Jin now. Meng Ziqiu, I didn't break the rules. I have a share of the God Investiture Scroll. Mohina Jin said flatly from within the golden light. Oh. Meng Ziqiu's expression darkened. When Ruo, you say it. Mohina Jin immediately shouted. Instantly, almost everyone turned to look at Mr. Munro. Mr. Munro's face showed a hint of bitterness. Guu Holy Sun immediately laughed. When Ruo, tell everyone. Are you helping my father fight for the God Investiture Scroll or Yang Chuan? Chapter 572. When Guu Holy Sun asked, almost everyone was surprised. Mr. Munro? Although Mohina Jin did not sign the life tablet, Mr. Munro contributed to Yang Chuan's victory. Mr. Munro's position was very important. If he fought for Mohina Jin, although it was a bit far-fetched, Mohina Jin had a moral standing. The whole place was silent. Mr. Munro was bitterly pushed to the top of the wave. When Ruo looked at her frowning father and smiled bitterly. When Ruo looked at Mo Yushi and smiled bitterly. When Ruo looked at Yang Chuan with a bitter expression. This was the reason why Wen Ruo did not want Yang Chuan to win. Yang Chuan stared at Wen Ruo. Wen Ruo closed her eyes, as if she was suffering in her heart. Wen Ruo, Mohina Jin said in a low voice. Wen Ruo opened her eyes and looked at Yang Chuan guiltily. She said bitterly, I fought for Mohina Jin. Wow. Suddenly, there was a sound of surprise. Everyone looked at Mr. Munro with disdain. No one dared to criticize Mohina Jin for taking things by force. However, in today's battle, Yang Chuan had won completely. How could he be so thick-skinned as to take the god's investiture strategy at this time? When Ruo was condemned by everyone. Her face was full of sorrow, and she could only smile bitterly. Meng Ziqiu looked at his son with mixed feelings. Yang Chuan looked at Wen Ruo and suddenly smiled. Mr. Munro. Yang Chuan opened his mouth. The Heaven's Gift Square suddenly became quiet. After all, Yang Chuan was the main character today. The person involved was going to be taken by Mohina Jin. Everyone was loyal to Yang Chuan, but they had no choice but to submit to Mohina Jin. Mohina Jin's coercion was like forcing all Confucian cultivators to give up their dignity. But there was really no way to resist. Mohina Jin's strength had long become a legend. They were one of the most powerful people in the world. Mohina Jin's oppression and Mr. Munro's betrayal made everyone look at Yang Chuan with sympathy. He didn't know what Yang Chuan was going to say. Prince Yang, I'm sorry. Mr. Munro said bitterly. Looking at Mr. Munro, Yang Chuan did not reprimand him as everyone had been waiting for. Instead, he saw Yang Chuan smile. Mr. Munro, you owe me again. Yang Chuan suddenly said with a smile. Yang Chuan owed him again. The last time was in the Immortal City, when Yang Chuan and Mr. Munro played chess. Yang Chuan deliberately did not defeat Wen Ruo, so Wen Ruo owed Yang Chuan once. This time, Wen Ruo went back on his words and owed Yang Chuan once again. Wen Ruo showed a trace of bitterness and solemnly bowed to Yang Chuan to express his deep regret. Yang Chuan understood that Wen Ruo was also forced by Mohina Jin. As for what he was forced to do, Yang Chuan did not understand, but he could feel that a person who valued his reputation as his life actually went back on his words in front of the world. This meant that he had something more important than reputation that was controlled by Mohina Jin. Yang Chuan, give me the investiture of the gods. Mohina Jin said calmly. His tone was full of great majesty that despised everything. Yang Chuan looked at Mohina Jin's virtuous Dharma idol in the golden light. He smiled slightly, and a trace of ferocity flashed in his eyes. Whoosh! His hand suddenly grabbed the investiture of the gods that was falling from the sky. You want to threaten me with a mere virtuous Dharma idol? Yang Chuan said with a glare. For the first time, in front of outsiders, Yang Chuan changed the way he addressed himself to I. Although the word I was simple, it carried a deep meaning. When the word I came out, it meant that Yang Chuan was ready to fight against the world. When the word I came out, it was a declaration of war against the world. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.